Being a magic genius but born with a mana disorder, what would that even feel like? When one door closes, another one surely opens. Let's follow the journey of Lewin Ardell, a young man who found himself in exactly that kind of situation. The moment he was born, he was considered the light that would brighten the world. Lewin was quite different, but the story really begins on the day his father and the butler had a conversation. The butler was preparing to set off on a trip to collect sea resources. Little Lewin sincerely warned him not to take the path near the southern mountains because he felt the mana flow there was very strange. On the day Beggins departed, the sky was covered in dark clouds and lightning. It wasn't until late in the evening that he came rushing back. It turned out that Beggins had listened to Lin's advice and taken a detour. But because of that, he had managed to avoid a disaster. Because as Beggins heard, that place had been attacked by monsters. No one could have returned safely if they had taken that route. From this moment on, Lewin's innate talent began to draw attention. Bane believed that he could sense the mana in the air. Even though he didn't quite understand how, his father felt that Lewin was the future of the Ardell family. It was true, by the time Lewin was 6, he could sense mana, and he was able to summon it just a year later. And then, by the time he turned 10, Lewin became the valedictorian at the Ignite Magic Academy, the best magic academy in the kingdom of Radian, along with the title of genius. At that time, Lewin was a bit arrogant. He was convinced he would bring his family to new heights, but in the end, he only made it this far. On the first day of class, Lewin realized he was nothing. While the teacher kept urging him to cast magic, Lewin looked like he was having a really hard time doing it. Even he couldn't understand what was wrong with himself. For the first time, Lewin, just like everyone else, realized he had a mana disorder. In that moment, everything inside Lewin seemed to shatter. His body lacked the ability to cast magic, even just 1 meter away. For a mage, having a body like this was truly pathetic. And then everyone realized he came from an ordinary family and had no talent at all. From then on, their attitude quickly changed 180 degrees. Just an accidental bump of shoulders on the way, 2 male students immediately showed their contempt. To all the students who envied him at the academy now, Lewin was just someone with no magical ability, a useless guy who couldn't even cast magic in a magic academy. Of course, now he was their favorite plaything. At times like these, Lewin could only cry helplessly, wondering if he could ever become a mage. Lewin Ardell, the name that had entered the academy with the highest score, the person who had been expected to do more than anyone else. The name that had been more diligent and hardworking than anyone else. Thanks to that mana disorder curse, he had become a magic cripple. Was that the end of everything? No, Lewin had thought everything was over at that moment, not knowing that a miracle still existed. The story of the forgotten genius would continue. A new journey of trials was being woven at the very end of despair. The light of hope and the system text appeared, blindingly bright. The treasure had been activated. The system screen was forming, while Lewin felt like he was falling into the depths of the universe. When he drowsily woke up, he didn't even know where he was. The only thing he knew was that his body felt like it was sinking deep into water. A confusing line of text appeared right before his eyes. That being told him that he was the incarnation of Uraka, the destroyer of the world. This giant god, this was the very one who had brought Lewin to this place. His appearance didn't look human, nor did he look like the heroes Lewin often saw. He absolutely didn't have enough time to wrap his head around this. His lips were moving as if he wanted to say something, and then Lewin's pupils just dilated in absolute shock. Going back a few hours ago, at the academy training ground, it was Lewin's turn to practice. Professor Heidel kindly told him to just do what he said, just create a fireball and hit that dummy, and that would be enough. Under the probing eyes of his classmates, Lewin knew full well that a fireball was a type of magic that any student could easily perform. But for him, it was different. This time, Lewin wasn't even sure if he could do it. Following the professor's command, Lewin was determined to succeed. An orange glow gradually formed under his hand. It grew larger and larger, just like Lewin's fierce determination. Forming under his hand, it grew larger and larger, just like Lewin's fierce determination. The boys were slightly surprised that he could have that much mana. Lewin thought he could do it this time, but the familiar feeling struck again. his hand shaking uncontrollably. Despite the forced pleas in his heart, the thing called mana disorder had defeated Lewin once again. He couldn't take it anymore and voiced his surrender. However, Professor Heidel still wanted him to try casting it. Lewin really wanted to as well, but he feared it was impossible. According to Heidel, he was now a final year student, and if he couldn't even do basic magic like a fireball, how could he pass the graduation exam? Even Lewin felt that he really was a waste. This training session was target practice. Lewin, a guy who couldn't even chant a spell, let alone hit the target. At this rate, becoming a third-rate mage was truly hopeless. Mocking laughter rang out loudly. They labeled him the disgrace of the academy. Lewin was too used to this kind of bullying, so he didn't care much. What made him collapse was the fact that he had no hope from the very beginning. It was all because of the curse that had haunted him for the past 6 years. Mana disorder. Even though Lewin had tried to hold on all these years, now he began to ask himself how long he could endure. After that training session, Lewin still shuffled along alone, following the crowd into the main hall. He wanted peace, but the storm wouldn't settle. 2 male students deliberately approached him and provoked him with sarcastic remarks. He kept calling him Lewin the Dumb with a smug look. Their words went too far, moving from mocking his achievements to calling his home and territory the middle of nowhere. They deliberately claimed the Ale family was anonymous, not very wealthy nor famous. The more they spoke, the more Lewin's patience reached its limit. You could mess with him, but you absolutely could not mess with his family. The male student was immediately silenced by Lewin's powerful punch. It was so strong that it sent him flying several meters away. Lewin was truly very angry because of his big mouth. Beaten until bruised, the male student still didn't know fear and shouted loudly. Lewin didn't hold back anymore. He knew he was Ben Folt and he was nobody to dare cause trouble with his father and family. The other male student with Ben Folt fearlessly rushed forward. As expected, he was overwhelmed by Lin's punch, momentarily unable to stand up, kneeling down like a dog. What Lewin didn't expect was that Ben would dare to use combat magic inside the academy. He didn't care at all about getting expelled, launching a large source of mana at him. Although his fighting ability was very good in terms of mana strength, Lewin was completely outclassed. His whole body couldn't move. Professor Heidel arrived to intervene, but he was a second too late. Lewin had been hit by Ben's massive mana source. He thought he would sleep forever like that. Now Lewin stood before the giant god and the system text. Faced with this, he still couldn't understand what the hell was going on. Lost in a surreal space, meeting a mysterious man left him wondering what on earth was happening. Even though he tried to listen carefully, he could only hear the last word, Lewin Ardel. The low voice rang out again. This time it was clearer, definitely his name, Lewin Ardel. And then from the void, a vague sound also came, as if calling his name, Lewin Ardel. Lewin Ardel. He slowly opened his eyes, revealing the image of a blonde woman. It turned out to be the high-level healer Helen. Her face was full of worry. "Are you awake?" After escaping the daze, he startled. He slowly sat up. "Where am I?" She saw this and immediately supported his body, gently replying, "Infirmary, it's okay, you don't need to force yourself to sit up." He tiredly held his head. "It's okay, a bit dizzy but I can sit." While saying that, he wondered to himself, did I just pass out? Disjointed images flashed through his mind. A mysterious man in a cloak, a mysterious space, the system voice. What was that? It was still very clear. Thinking of this, he asked Helen, "How long have I been out?" She replied, "Nearly a day." She continued, "It's fortunate that it wasn't worse. God helped you." He was silent for a moment, then softly asked, "Am I completely healthy now?" Her face showed a hint of worry, her words somewhat hesitant. "We still need to monitor you further, but you look very healthy for someone who was just struck by direct lightning, no wounds, burns, or any internal organ damage at all. I have never seen a case like yours." But in her dozen or so years of living, she had never witnessed a case like this, so she couldn't help but be astonished. What is this? Is this even possible? He stared at his palms, gradually falling into deep thought. Lightning is a terrifying spell that can burn the body in an instant, and I took it head-on, so why is my body totally fine? Suddenly, Professor Heidel walked in, interrupting his train of thought. "Excuse us for a moment." Helen heard this and bowed down to remind him, "The professor is here, now I'll go check the results. If there are any issues, report them immediately." At this moment, he also instinctively raised his head. He stepped forward to stand in front of his bed, crossed his arms, and asked calmly, "How do you feel?" He replied, "I'm fine." His usually strict facial muscles relaxed slightly. "How fortunate!" Then he informed him about the situation after he passed out and that there was a meeting taking place among the professors regarding this accident. He looked straight at him while he just silently lowered his head to listen. First, Ben Folt will be expelled for using powerful attack magic with the intention of causing severe harm, spreading false rumors about the Ale family and treating you unfairly while bullying you. All these matters have been decided by the teachers. His face darkened, muttering painfully, but I also hit Ben Folt back. He immediately replied, of course you will also have to receive a penalty considering what happened. You will be forced to participate in the Academy's volunteer activities for 1 month. He nodded slightly. Yes. It seemed there was still some lingering concern in his heart. Furthermore, I want to ask this question. Are you holding a treasure? His question made him look up. What? You should know that it is a legendary weapon left behind by ancient mages with an infinite source of mana. He immediately waved his hands in denial. Treasure, I definitely don't have one. If I had something like that, I wouldn't have been bullied. He narrowed his eyes slightly, hand placed on his chin, his voice deepening. Anyway, considering how valuable and rare it is, the Ale family patriarch probably used it for the family's benefit. Unable to hide his curiosity, he spoke up. But why are you asking me? He focused his gaze on him, eyes deep and sharp as if trying to pierce through every layer of thought, saying nothing. After a moment of silence, he recalled the scene just earlier and recounted. Surely there was a red light enveloping your body just before the lightning hit. It looked like a high-level treasure protecting you, knocking Ben's magic away. Hearing this, he looked confused. What are you talking about? He thought to himself. What treasure is he talking about? Suddenly he seemed to realize something. Wait, don't tell me it's related to that dream earlier. Then he immediately denied it. No, I'm going crazy. He sighed slightly. Although I don't understand what happened, I'm sure you don't have a treasure, all right. He turned his back and left before Lin's eyes. Get some rest. He thoughtfully watched his receding back. He had told the professor he didn't know what happened, but his teacher didn't say anything more. What is the professor thinking? When he was left alone in the room, he sat in deep thought for a long time. What he had experienced was no different from a dream. And that strange voice, Draka treasure, the destroyer of the world and the player. He kept tapping his forehead, muttering, I think there was one more sentence. What was it? Lewin skeptically blurted out, status window. And immediately a blue panel appeared in midair, making his eyes widen in astonishment. As if seeing a ghost, he instinctively backed away, screaming. Ah, what the hell is that? Helen heard the noise and immediately ran in. Seeing his dazed face, she asked, Lewin, are you okay? Do you not feel well? He pointed at the blue panel floating in the air, stammering. No, not that. Do you see it? The blue panel in front of me. She was confused. What are you rambling about, Lin? There's nothing there. Are you sure you're okay? At this moment, an idea flashed through his head. No way. If she really can't see it, then this can only be seen by me. Information appeared on the status window. Lewin Ardal, incarnation of Draka, destroyer of the world, resulting from the pursuit of infinite power. Mage Draka perished along with his world. For Draka, who was born lacking mana, strength is the source of his power. The player of Draka's treasure can open the status window and can infinitely increase power by completing missions. Strength 150, Agility 100, Intelligence 1550. To avoid being mistaken for a madman, he quickly changed the subject. It's nothing, I'm just a bit confused. She laughed helplessly. Okay, don't overthink it. Holding the test results in her hand, she happily announced, the results are completely normal, you can return to the dormitory now. He smiled, feeling like a weight had been lifted. Yes, thank you. Lewin summarized all the strange events that had happened. Today, he was still alive after being hit by lightning. The man with red eyes he met in another space and the status window that only he could see. And then he remembered the first status window he saw in his dream. It said he was the incarnation of Draka. Could it be that the treasure of the mage named Draka had been transferred to him? In the blink of an eye, night had fallen over the training ground. A strange window displayed before his eyes again. He was a bit startled, but curiosity quickly overcame everything, making him tap it. On it was his first mission. Repeatable mission because you have become a player linked to Draka, destroyer of the world. You need to train your body to prepare for the process of increasing power. Punch, kick, and rotate. Perform each action 100 times. The reward is plus 10 strength and unlocking a new skill. After reading, he rolled up his sleeves to prepare. His face was still tinged with a bit of doubt and confusion. Punch and kick. Well, it's related to strength, but how can that help me become a mage? But this wasn't the time for questions, he had to try. Thinking that, he took a deep breath. He swung his right hand, punch count went up to 1. Then he swung his left hand, punch count went up to 2. He chuckled, a smile mixed with a bit of smugness as if he had the victory in his hands. Great, it's increasing. At this rate, I'll be done soon. Maintaining that momentum, he continued to throw the next punch. Hey, he shouted in rhythm with the blow, but the number of punches still stopped at 2. He meticulously observed the mission again, frowning. This time it didn't go up. I think it won't count as completed if I swing my arm incorrectly. That thought made him much more serious. All right, let's punch properly. The crescent moon rose high, dangling in the silent sky. When everyone was fast asleep, he was panting as if he'd been chased by dogs for a whole hour. Resting his hands on his knees in exhaustion, he finally uttered, "It's over." Then he let out a satisfied smile. It's finally done. The status window flickered into existence, announcing that the quest was complete and awarding him plus 10 strength points while unlocking a new skill. Wiping the heavy sweat from his brow, he glanced up at the screen and wondered, what exactly is this reward? Suddenly, he felt a strange, refreshing aura gradually flowing into his body. He exclaimed in wonder, what is this feeling? It was flowing gently through his veins, something far more fundamental than mana. He clenched his fist, his fingers tightening as his arm trembled slightly with excitement. I've actually become stronger. Feeling the need to test this newfound power immediately, he took a deep breath, raised his hand, and swung it forward with all his might. Let's see. With just one punch, the air in front of him seemed to be torn apart instantly. Feeling like he had conquered a new world, he smiled with satisfaction. The strength imbued into his magic was truly more powerful. The speed, air resistance, and destructive force had all genuinely changed compared to before. While constantly marveling at his new power, he suddenly remembered, what about the skill unlock reward? With just a soft call from him, the status window immediately manifested in midair. The internal force circle had replaced strength. The mana circle was replaced by the force circle. From now on, all magic and movements would be influenced by the player's strength. Force is a concept often associated with physical power or energy in various systems. He wondered about the replacement of the mana circle with the force circle. He then placed his hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. So that means my mana will be replaced by force. Anyone who senses or learns mana has a circle surrounding their heart. The mana circle plays a major role in the process of releasing and enhancing mana, increasing stats depending on the length and amount of mana a mage can control. He closed his eyes, slowly sensing a vague movement in his chest. I have 4 mana circles, more than other children my age, but they were useless because of my own defect. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide as if he had sensed something. His mana circles had truly disappeared. The powerful circle spinning wildly in their place must be the force circle. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but be bewildered and fell back in surprise. Soon, that shock was replaced by confusion. The force circle replacing the mana circle. One cannot be a mage without a mana circle. If this new circle can't do what the mana circle did, what will happen to me? A trace of sadness appeared on his face. Is my life as a mage going to end like this? But realizing that being pessimistic was useless right now, he quickly regained his confidence. No, it's too early to despair. I'll try it first. He extended his hand forward, concentrating all his will on a familiar incantation. Fireball! Instantly, a surge of power erupted from his palm, and in the blink of an eye, a violent ball of fire formed. Looking at the fire before him, he exclaimed, so fast, how is this possible? He couldn't take his eyes off that flame, which looked even more powerful. The moment he saw the size of the fireball, he realized the truth. Lewin laughed with sheer delight. This is definitely the power of the treasure. Lewin held the flame in his hand, thinking to himself, since magic has a basic activation mechanism, there should be about a 10-second recharge before releasing this power. He calculated and whispered, but I can completely bypass that 10-second mechanism and create a fireball using the power within my own body. Truly, as the protagonist, I must be the strongest. He clenched his hand into a fist. This is the power of a treasure. Suddenly, something strange appeared in front of Lewin. He was curious. What is that? It turned out to be a system notification. Mad Mage Draka, you who cannot release energy normally have created this ability. Focus mana into your body and your enemies. You are not affected by your own magic. When casting magic, an enhancement effect will be added. Magic attacks will deal additional psychological damage. He read the information provided by the system and mused. Focus mana into the body to attack. How do I do that? he kept asking himself. Reflecting on it seriously now, Lewin realized that Draka also suffered from the same mana disorder as he did, and wondered if he focused mana into his fists and legs. The more he read, the less Lewin could believe it. Why would he create a method like this? Just then, a quest notification appeared. The protagonist snapped out of it and cried out, "A quest?" The quest objective was to practice using the Mad Mage method, using the Force Circle and mana to attack a target. For each target attacked, the reward points would increase by 10. The protagonist looked a bit skeptical. Attack a target. He narrowed his eyes. I've never thought of this method. If I can become a mage using this method. Lewin reached out and grabbed the fireball. I have to try it. The fireball in his hand burned with brilliant sparks as if it wanted to consume everything. Once finished, a satisfied smile played on Lewin's lip. The system immediately announced, "Quest complete, strength reward points plus 10. Finally, Lewin collapsed onto the ground. He looked up at the starry sky contentedly. I've finally completed the quest. Recalling how he had always failed at the magic release step, he didn't expect to succeed by using his fists. Lewin curiously wondered how Draka actually existed. He wanted to investigate this, but his body felt like lead. Suddenly, strange sounds rang out. Oh, what is he sleeping here? It seems he practiced until he was exhausted, but did he really fall asleep here? Should we wake him up? Lewin's head was now filled with the sound of voices. What's going on? Did I die and go to heaven? Whoa, how could he die? He took a direct lightning strike and he's still fine. Incredible. The chatter continued. Lewin slowly opened his eyes. What's all the noise about? Everyone was startled. Oh my god, you're awake, Lewin, you scared us to death. Lewin calmly stretched. What's wrong? Why are you all gathered here? Is this the first time you've seen someone sleeping out here or something? They nodded. Of course, what noble would sleep out here instead of in a warm bed? It's strange. They were suspicious. Hey Lewin, are you drunk or something? He didn't care much and waved them off. Drunk on what? I was tired, so I went to sleep. Bye. Everyone stood there helpless. They buzzed with chatter. Lewin seems like a completely different person. Someone asked doubtfully, how so? Suddenly, a noble student turned back and saw something. His voice was a bit curious. But what about that scarecrow that was beaten to pieces with only the stake left? Did Lewin do that? But they dismissed it immediately. Nah, probably not. At the noble dormitory, Lewin walked up to a blonde friend who asked, Yeah, what is it, Lewin? He asked, were you out all night? This is Jason Damon, a 6th-year student at Ignite Academy. He kept asking, what happened? You don't usually leave the academy for this long. The protagonist dismissed him. You don't need to worry about so many things. Looking at this blonde guy, he might seem like just another person, but he is the eldest son of the Damon family, a prominent mining family, and at least he still treated someone considered a failure like me well. Jason continued to tease, don't tell me you went to see some girl, you just got back. But there was a downside to this guy. He was an alcoholic and a womanizer who frequently sneaked out of the academy. He spoke incessantly. Hey, could it be that after being hit by that lightning, you finally learned how to enjoy yourself? Come on, tell me what you did last night. Lewin threw something at him and said, what nonsense, I have to go take a shower. In the bathroom, Lewin lay down in a relaxed mood. Ah, I'm alive. Suddenly, he remembered something. Ah, right, the quest, let's check it. Lewin called out quest. The notification board appeared. Repeatable quest, physical training. Since you have become someone who can connect with Draka, the world destroyer, you need to train to enhance your strength. Each time you punch, kick, or complete a task, you will be awarded 10 strength points. The protagonist sighed. The reward is the same, but the requirement has doubled. He submerged himself. Who knows, maybe the requirement will double again in the future. I knew it, this won't be easy. But reflecting on it, if I can become a mage through this method. 1 month later, Lewin was still training. The quest could be repeated at most once a day, but the reward remained the same while the requirement increased. If I don't complete the quest within that day, all progress will return to 0 the next day. But if I don't miss a single day of the quest, Lewin panted, the quest requirement did not exceed 3,000 times a day. If he trained anymore, he'd probably die from doing quests. He pivoted his heels slightly. Finally, the training quest board updated. All stats such as punches, kicks, and rotations were completed 3,000 times out of the total, but the added points were still a meager 10. For the past month, the protagonist had been training like that, and he also obtained a new skill, passive body arts, which increases physical capabilities. The body becomes more flexible based on the training process. At the dormitory, during lunch, everyone was buzzing with gossip. Liuan is strange lately, isn't he? Before he never dared to blink during class, but now he just falls asleep like that. Someone else immediately retorted, is that all you saw? Lately he almost eats and sleeps on the training ground and only practices kicking. Someone spoke up, leave him alone. Is this the first time he's been strange? They chatted, maybe he's just doing that to cope with his mana disorder. It won't work anyway. For Liuan, a month passed just like that. I've completed the quest and have a few clues about Draka, but he couldn't find the name Draka in any records. Everywhere was the same. Not only that, things like World Destroyer player, quest boards, systems, and status windows had no clues at all. He was constantly curious. Draka, just who is he? At this moment, the status window also appeared. Liuan Ardal, the incarnation of Draka, the World Destroyer. A question always remained in Liuan's mind, just who was providing him with this power. Suddenly there was a loud call. Liuan, come here. It was Jason. The protagonist was curious. What's wrong? Jason asked back, have you heard? He was confused. What? Jason's face showed a trace of hesitation. So you don't know anything, which is why you can read so leisurely. Liuan asked again, did something serious just happen? Jason glanced at the Ardal family head who was present here. The protagonist's eyes widened. What? Jason repeated, Liuan, your father. Heavy footsteps landed. Liuan pushed the door open and walked in, panting incessantly. Father. Everyone immediately looked back. His father exclaimed, Liuan, my son, here you are. The two of them chose to sit in a private spot. The protagonist spoke first. It's been 6 years, hasn't it, since I came to this academy. Are you doing well, father? His father nodded. Yes, I'm still healthy. He didn't forget to ask, and what about Liuana? He recounted proudly. Your sister, she's grown up. These days, she's even practicing swordsmanship on her own. She said she'll protect her weak older brother. Liuan laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, how embarrassing. He dismissed it. Is she still as bold as ever? Liuan suddenly changed his expression. Father, he asserted, I am doing very well right now. His father was confused. What do you mean? Liuan emphasized again. I'm really fine, not injured physically or mentally. Ardal family head took a sip of tea. His voice was strangely calm. Liuan, actually, I came to the academy to ask for your opinion on leaving this academy. He comforted him. If you find it too difficult, you can return to our territory whenever you want. I know you're facing many difficulties that you're not mentioning, right? He also understood clearly. I already guessed why you came here, but father, I think I've found a way. Liuan persuaded him, so please promise me one thing. He was surprised. A promise? The protagonist was determined. In the next exam, I will achieve good marks in the practical tests. In return, if I fail, from now on I will no longer act on my own will but will listen to you. He knew that after promising to achieve high marks in the practical exam, his father had seen his determination and returned to the mansion after the conversation. And then the exam that the protagonist had been waiting for finally arrived. The proctor called out, all right, pay attention. Standing on the podium, he began to explain the system. Today is the day for the introductory magic course exam. Any cheating will result in failure. Voices began to ring out. Begin the exam. The protagonist gripped his quill tightly. The school exam consists of 2 parts, a theoretical part and a practical part. The practical exam has 4 sections: target identification, magic measurement, practical confrontation, and one-on-one combat. As someone with mana disorder, our protagonist had always achieved absolute marks in the theoretical part for the past 6 years. In the practical exam, Michael of the Gage Hill family had always ranked first. Liuan's hand tightened. However, this time will be different. Everything will change. He emphasized, this time will be different. Liuan was willing to bet, because I will definitely take first place in the practical exam this time. After the written exams were finished, suddenly a voice called out, Liuan, it was Jason. He walked up. Lately I've found you a bit strange. Do you have a plan for the practical exam today? He nodded. Yes, I'll do it in a new way. Jason was surprised. Really, what way did you find? A contemptuous voice rang out. Liuan, what are you doing here? It turned out to be Mikkel. He crossed his arms disdainfully. Don't tell me you're using that body to take the practical exam. It's useless with your mana disorder. Liuan stroked his chin. So what? I did come here to compete. Mikkel had no intention of letting it go. Liuan, as a model student, if I were to give advice to someone who failed the practical exam 6 times like you. His voice was full of mockery. What should I say instead of just coming here to be humiliated? Why don't you just give up right now? Liuan retorted, who knows, I don't think your advice is useful. Mikkel patted his shoulder. Ha, I think you're misunderstanding something. Do you think someone with mana disorder will finish the exam? He wondered in annoyance. What's wrong with this bastard? Mikkel gritted his teeth. Before he was so subservient, why is he so confident now? How annoying. He challenged. I'll show you during the one-on-one combat, just wait. Finally, the exam began. The first part was target identification. Its official name was the multi-target shoot-down exam. The method was simple. The exam would check the number of targets shot down in a single casting. However, this year's exam was different from the previous one in that the difficulty had been increased. The targets moved constantly. The candidates competed continuously and the organizers would announce the number of targets downed. First, Herc, 1 target. Next, Angelina, 0 targets. Some even hit only 4 targets at most. Because of this, the average score this year was terribly low. Next, the following student got 3 targets. The teachers behind frowned. Just a slight increase in difficulty and the scores have dropped to rock bottom. This year's student quality is too poor. But suddenly, a reminder rang out. Professor, it might be a bit early to be disappointed now. It was Professor Elric, the professor of the alchemy department and the uncle of Mikkel Garihil. He looked very proud. It's almost Mikkel's turn, take a look. Professor Elric seemed very expectant of his nephew's performance. The boy is here. He prepared to strike, his mind still filled with wandering thoughts. Watch closely, Lewin. He was very confident. I don't know what you plan to do. Professor Elric shouted. Mikkel was confident. This is the difference between you and me. Then he struck. A series of scarecrows were hit after that critical blow. Everyone who saw it exclaimed, "Whoa, that's Elric for you, 1 casting and so many targets hit, he'll probably take first place again." Teacher Elric approached. How was it? The boy is truly worthy of the Garihil lineage, isn't he? He didn't stop bragging. At this level, Mikkel is truly the pride of our academy. He will definitely be this year's student representative. Suddenly an interruption rang out. All right, Professor Elric. I think we don't need to see the capabilities of this year's batch anymore. The speaker was Professor Tyrion Ignit, the academy principal and a 7th Circle master. Professor Heidel didn't give up. Why don't we stay a little longer? It's almost Lewin's turn. Professor Tyrion asked back. Lewin, that Lewin Ardle? He asked Professor Hello. That kid is still at the academy. He agreed. Fine, for the boy's enthusiasm, let's stay and take a look. It wouldn't hurt to sit and watch for a while. Lewin rubbed his wrists. All right, this is a good opportunity to test my strength. The instructor called out, Lewin, begin. Lewin held the fireball in his hand and agreed. Yes, Professor. A bright, brilliant flame radiated around him, sparkling as if it were coated in gold. Everyone watching was very astonished. What is that? What's with that casting speed? The students were buzzing too. Whoa, how many targets are those? I really don't know. This can't be. By now, Mikkel was gritting his teeth in pure anger. He sneered, reminding them, don't you guys know Lewin has a mana disorder? Even if he casts it 1,000 times, who knows if he'll even hit the target? That useless piece of trash can't do anything right. But without anyone knowing, the power-up system had been activated. Time refraction activated, distorting time refraction for 30 seconds. Speed increased by 200% of power, movement speed will be faster. You have moved through distorted time, cooldown is 5 minutes. Lewin recalled the skill he had just received, time refraction. It helped him move unusually fast to anywhere he wanted. In other words, the energy radiating from the protagonist was so massive, it overwhelmed everything around him. A brilliant flame surrounded and protected him. The professors watched intently. The students' eyes went wide. Finished, Lewin grinned smugly. Done. Wood fragments scattered through the air. Lewin, 27 targets. The professor in charge turned pale, breaking out in a cold sweat. Meanwhile, Lewin stood there, panting as he looked at the pile of targets in front of him. Whispers began to erupt. What was that? He cast magic on his hands and then used his hands to punch the targets. 27 targets, too. He just broke the record for the number of targets hit in this test. How could he move that fast? Is it even right to use magic to punch the target? There are too many surprises here. But then everything fell silent. When a round of applause broke the silence, the principal of Ignit Academy, Tyrion Ignit, he was the first to stand up and give Lewin a round of applause and praise. Lewin, that was truly excellent, while everyone was still bewildered by his performance that exceeded the pick-serb limit. Even the principal gave him recognition. People began to cheer. That's right, amazing Lin, congratulations. But mingled with the cheers, there were still those who refused to recognize someone else's talent. Some were angry, some silent, others questioning. But what could they do? A loser is a loser. Of course, Mikkel couldn't be missing. Seeing his angry face, he surely couldn't accept it, but he could only monologue internally. Lewin, that brat, how could he? Gritting his teeth, his eyebrows nearly meeting, but he couldn't do a thing. Cheering resonated everywhere. He stood there silently, but was secretly happy to be praised and recognized by everyone. This was something he hadn't experienced in the last 6 years, which explains why he had never received a compliment all those years. His chest felt all warm inside. Lewin stood with his head held high, smiling slightly. Sunlight shone on his young face. His eyes showed pride in himself and the feeling of being recognized. That's right, this is exactly the feeling I've always wanted. In the meeting room, Elric spoke up uncomfortably, casting magic on his hands and then punching the target. Professor, are you calling that magic? I've never heard of any magic like that. Seeing the sour expression on his face, you could tell he didn't accept it. Heidel immediately retorted, but Professor, you know magic has no limits. This is a field where anything can happen. He turned serious. If everything only happened within established frameworks, it wouldn't be magic anymore, it would just be math. True, true, true. If we always follow frameworks, how can we improve? What is level and who is grading? Elric still wanted to argue against Heidel, but before he could finish, Tyrion signaled him to shut his beak. He spoke softly, "Today I have witnessed a student who performed a miracle." His face showed clear joy. It's a miracle of magic, isn't it, like how we met? However, it seemed the professors had conflicting opinions on this. Everyone went silent, as if silently agreeing with the principal. Elric was angry and refused to accept the truth. Damn it, that guy Lewin has turned everything upside down. Who would have thought things would end up like this? Jason threw his arm around Lewin's shoulder and said loudly, "Hey, the Supreme Mage has arrived." Lewin was almost crushed into the ground by Jason's arm, but he whispered, "Hey, stop it." Hearing this, a few people approached the two of them. "Oh, there's Lewin," everyone greeted him. "Lewin, hello, how did you do in yesterday's practical test?" He greeted them back but couldn't say a thing. Questions from his classmates kept bombarding him. "Lewin, do you know my name? We've been in the same class for the last 6 years." He hurriedly escaped the crowd, thinking to himself that until yesterday he had only been a nobody in this school. Lewin turned his back to everyone, hurriedly saying to Jason, "Jason, I'm heading off first." Even today, he still couldn't believe everything had changed so dizzyingly. Just overnight, everything had changed, so he hadn't adapted yet. Truth be told, being alone was more comfortable. However, he still knew one thing very clearly: there were still plenty of people who didn't like him very much. He slowly opened the door to his room. Some blonde-haired jerk was standing in his room, and upon hearing the door open, he spoke up, "There you are. Oh, you've already entered someone else's room and you're still talking with that attitude. What are you doing in someone else's dorm room?" Mikkel darkened his face and asked immediately, his eyes looking like he was about to send him to the afterlife right then and there. He turned to approach him, raising his snooty voice. "Having achieved a few points with that non-magic stuff, you've started acting all arrogant. Your arrogance makes me sick, so I'm here to remind you, don't get cocky." He said things that made you want to use a monkey's hand to scratch your own rear end right away. But he didn't hold back and countered immediately. "Isn't it because you lost face when your score was lower than the person you've looked down on for the past 6 years? I thought he was something special, but it turns out he's only that much." Just by saying that, he successfully provoked him, making the blood rush to his head as he went crazy, lunging to grab Lewin by the collar. "What did you say, you bastard?" Meanwhile, Lewin's face remained cold, showing no emotion at his insanity. He calmly grabbed the hand that was grabbing his shirt, and gently pried it off without much effort. It was precisely that calm, gentle behavior of his that surprised him and made him tremble even more. Mikkel was somewhat panicked, his eyebrows knitting together. "What the hell is this? Is this loser really this strong?" He couldn't believe his eyes. "Mikkel, we both need to graduate." Lewin leaned close to his face, his eyes growing angrier. "If you really want to push me that much, then wait until the one-on-one combat test and have a fair fight." He just growled a little and he was already sweating bullets. He flicked his hand away. Mikkel glared at him angrily. "Do you think you're qualified to fight me, a guy who fails every subject like you?" Lewin immediately retorted, "Just wait and you'll see if I'm qualified or not. What is level and who is grading?" His eyes fixed steadily on Mikkel's dog face. He walked away, not forgetting to leave a sharp glare behind. "Pass the next test and then we'll talk." He walked away, but in his head he couldn't stop thinking about his arch-rival. That arrogant bastard, how can he not fail today's practical test, not to mention the combat test? It's funny to see Mikkel's angry face, isn't it? Just looking at it makes you want to punch him, hee hee. Then suddenly, he pulled the hand that was in his pocket out, and his hand kept trembling. Is he really a mage, he wondered. No matter how many times I look at this statue, it never ceases to impress me. A massive elf statue standing tall in the training area. The second practical test, mana performance measurement testing area, the Academy's treasure and a rare item. There are only a few on this entire continent. The ancient elf kingram. 500 years ago, Archmage Freud turned the elf kingram into a treasure while he was still alive. Kingram is trapped in this treasure, absorbing mana and considered a magic punching bag. This mana performance measurement test requires students to cast magic on Kingram to earn points. Lewin asked Jason, does that mean what we need to do is cast the magic we are most confident in on that statue? Jason replied. Yeah, brief and concise. But that elf is famous for being incredibly stingy with points. Over 20 points is already very good. In front was a student with hair covering more than half his head and violet energy, looking quite Tempest Arcane. He cast the magic toward the elf. The elf spoke, retake the class, you 1 point mage, it's still not too late to drop out. That student froze in absolute shock. Everyone began to whisper. I thought he did well, of course, it's not easy, huh? Everyone marveled at the elf's pickiness in grading. Next, stand in front of me. That student slunk away in a terrible mood, unable to believe it. A female student walked up. Haha, now it's my turn, ha. She raised her hand to watch closely, very confident. Ice ball, she cast the magic. The elf spoke up. I certainly won't forget you, impressive, she asked back happily. Really? Kingram answered her, yes. But not letting her be happy for too long, he immediately poured a bucket of cold water on her. This is the first time I've seen someone cast magic as trashy as this, that's enough. This is trashy enough? He bluntly gave that girl 2 points. Hearing that, she burst into tears, refusing to accept reality. No way, I did the best I could. Others continued to step up, but they didn't do much better. 5 points get lost. Hearing that score, it's normal for anyone to scream. What the hell, he continued to whine and complain. What is this bland magic? Did you mix it with water or what? It was 100% mana. The foul-mouthed elf was so angry he started cursing. The professor in charge immediately spoke up. Jackson, stop yelling, go back to your spot. Timely stopping a terrorization to the ears of the other students. Ah, that's not it. Jackson, seeing he was warned, scratched his head looking innocent and ran back to his spot. Next, Gary Hill. The professor in charge called out, his face looking like he'd gone through 50 husbands, 49 lawsuits, 33 times catching his wife cheating in the act, his face as dark as pickled crap. Oh, but it turns out that was just the expression before casting magic. Bursts of mana attacked the elf statue. Kingram spoke up, Gary Hill, I'm a bit disappointed. Are you Jorge Gary Hill's son? Being asked that, he proudly replied, that's right, I am the third son of George Gary Hill. The proud Gary Hill. Proud, you say? Ha ha, he mocked. Your father was a crybaby fool who begged me for extra points. Gary Hill, you are far more incompetent than your foolish father. 27 points. Hearing that, he angrily yelled at his face, you're just a common elf, how dare you talk nonsense. The professor in charge immediately stepped in to stop Mikkel. Be quiet, Mikkel. He called the next person, Lewin Ardelil. He answered immediately. Present. Lin stepped forward. On the outside he seemed to have no emotion, right? Inside he was burning up. Phew, I'm suddenly feeling so nervous. Just give it a try, I can do it. A flame appeared on his hand. He raised his head and introduced himself. I am Lewin Ardel, very pleased to meet you. The gaze of determination, emotion unchanged, truly powerful. Oh, this is the first time I've seen your face. He was slightly surprised. Doesn't matter, just do the test. He wasn't very interested. While he and his magic were ready, the flame burned as brightly as his eyes, though he didn't know if it meant anything. A student immediately spotted Lin's magic. Is that explosive fire power? His face showed 4 words, total shock. Some other students also immediately recognized it as a level 4 magic. Others were surprised and couldn't believe it. What, he can do that? Kingram asked, what is your stance? You changed your stance to cast magic, I'm coming up. Lewin leaped off the ground. The mana that was previously on his hands was now at his feet. Maybe Lewin was trying to pull a Son Goku, because Son Goku has the flying nimbus. At first, everyone thought he would use his hands, but he decided to take a turn, taking everyone from one surprise to another. He had transferred the mana to his feet, then used his 3-meter-long legs to kick straight into the Kingram statue. The professor in charge was also incredibly surprised by his performance. No way, how could the kid transmit mana from his hands to his feet and then make it explode in a split second like that? He wondered, and that was it. The students were all stunned and couldn't believe it. One person asked, "Didn't you just say that was level 4 magic?" The other replied immediately, "Wrong, the energy of that strike must be at least level 5. So Lewin landed after the godlike kick with 3-meter legs. "Do you mean Lewin is at least a level 5 mage?" He panted, breathing as if this would be the last time he could breathe, but in his head he had a flurry of thoughts. What happened? My explosive firepower was cast correctly. Lewin was still a bit worried. But why was Kingram's reaction so strange? Did I do something wrong? He finally spoke up. "Who are you?" He wondered. "What do you mean? I already introduced myself. I am Lewin Ardle." Lewin hadn't finished his sentence when Kingram interrupted. "Are you Draka?" The question made his face pale immediately. "Draka. I have always been waiting for you." Even though he only had those blood-red eyes, it was enough to imagine his expression. Desperate and longing, Kingram's voice echoed. "I have always been waiting for you, Draka." That whisper cut through the silent space, spreading confusion. The crowd around immediately started buzzing, searching gazes, sparking countless questions. "Draka, who is that? Did he mistake Lin for someone else?" Curiosity mixed with skepticism spread throughout the space, drawing wrinkles on many people's foreheads. In Lewin's mind, memories of 2 months spent diligently scouring every related document suddenly rushed back. He had flipped through every dusty page, dug deep into every ancient record, but absolutely found nothing. "I have scoured related documents for the past 2 months but still haven't found any trace of Draka." But unexpectedly Kingram knew. Lewin's face immediately darkened, a gloom enveloped him because he truly understood, truly realized the deep meaning behind his cryptic words. "Do you know Raka?" Lewin asked, his voice carrying surprise and a glimmer of faint hope. Answering that probing question, Kingram uttered only a single word, concise but full of weight and certainty. Yes. Seizing this rare opportunity, Lewin decided to make the most of it. He hurriedly asked a few more things, hoping to dig up even a little bit of information about that mysterious person. "So can you tell me more about him?" A mysterious smile flashed across Kingram's rugged face. He whispered, "Very interesting. Didn't expect to meet his incarnation at this academy." His deep voice sounded again, words without beginning or end carrying strange incomprehensibility. Lewin blinked, trying to grasp the meaning of each word, each sentence. What does incarnation mean? Suddenly, a sudden question rang out from Kingram, interrupting Lewin's train of thought. "What is your name?" Though surprised, Lewin quickly replied, Lewin Ardelo." He answered the question suddenly. "Good, Lin, I will remember it well," Kingram said. Each word seemed etched into his mind. He stood firm. Kingram's massive physique was like a looming mountain, so tall it seemed to block out the sunlight from Itsuki's side, casting a giant shadow over him. When Kingram turned to leave, a sudden voice rang out, immediately stopping that intention. A voice spoke, immediately stopping the intention to leave. "Excuse me, before you go, can you tell me how many points?" The question echoed. "There are too many people here, I'll tell you later. The assessment ends here. This magic is not something I can evaluate." Kingram's cold, decisive verdict was like a lightning strike, making his counterpart scream in astonishment. What are you saying?" He couldn't believe what he had just heard, resentment clear on his face. "According to the school's rules, you are required to provide an evaluation for the academy. This step must be followed for 500 years after Archmage Frone Zignet's passing." That guy tried to cite the regulations, his voice full of frustration. "Enough!" Kingram interrupted him with a terrifying roar, echoing all around, carrying incredible intimidation. "You dare mention rules in front of me? For how many years I've had to evaluate these kids who don't look like mages at all." His face tightened to the extreme, his bloodshot eyes bursting with rage, making the other flinch immediately, voice stammering, I apologize, but forget about that guy Ignit, I don't care." Kingram growled, the contempt clear in every word, "But a covenant is a covenant, I will give you the score." He was silent, his gaze sharp like a dagger, making the other gulp, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead, clearly showing extreme anxiety. "1 is 0, 2 is 100, what do you want, little destroyer?" Kingram's low voice rang out, directed straight at Lewin, making him react immediately. A bright smile appeared on Lewin's lips. He didn't hesitate or think about his choice at all, his gaze responding firmly. "Of course, 100 points." The news spread like wildfire, buzzing throughout the academy hallways. "Hey, did you know, Kingram gave 100 points in his test?" Immediately, whispers broke out one after another. Huh, that Kingram guy, and who did he give it to? Another person curiously asked, surprise clear in every word. Heard he graded the legendary last-place student Lewin Ardell. The people around slowly began to gossip, faces showing extreme astonishment as they received this shocking new information. In the midst of that, a voice raised sternly, breaking the noisy atmosphere. It was Professor Heidel. He walked over to Lewin, gaze searching. You caused trouble again, he startled, immediately turning toward the voice. Professor Haidu, why are you here? Lewin asked somewhat unexpectedly. Professor Heidel crossed his arms sternly, stepping closer to Lin. The news that you received 100 points from Kingram has reached the principal's ears. Upon hearing the news, the principal decided to reward you because this has never happened before. Professor Heidel's words carried a special solemnity, showing the importance of the incident. Here, take this first. Saying that, he handed Lewin a scroll he was holding. Lewin read the text on the scroll aloud, his face full of confusion and skepticism. Treasure vault, what is this? Without further explanation, Heidel just waved his hand toward him, then turned and walked away, signaling, follow me. After a long walk, crossing silent hallways and mysterious doors, Heidel stopped in front of a room with a strictly closed door. The door looked ancient and majestic, as if it had existed for centuries. When it opened, a blast of cold air blew out. Professor Heidel signaled Lewin to enter, and both went deeper inside. Well, I didn't know this place existed here. Lewin followed him while looking around, his curious eyes exploring the strange place he was stepping into for the first time. Everything here was completely different from what he had seen in the academy. Of course, Heidel explained, this is the only forbidden place in the academy. Hearing this, a vague question appeared in Lin's head, the only forbidden place in the academy. Then why did he lead him here? Curiosity mixed with a bit of anxiety began to creep into his mind. Finally, both stopped at another door, closed more securely than any other. Professor Heidel stopped, turned to Lewin, his eyes revealing seriousness. This is the path to the treasure vault. I'm only allowed to go this far. He looked at him, anxiety and unease rising. So I have to go in alone? Yes, go in, I'll be right here waiting for you, he comforted him. Finally, he stepped forward to open the door in front of him, his head filled with countless questions that were hard to answer. He didn't know what would happen, but his teacher said it was a reward, so he just had to try and see. With a bit of courage mixed with curiosity, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. Facing Lewin was a room that, although empty, was overwhelmingly large, and a terrifying gloom shrouded it. Faint light leaked in from somewhere, just enough to recognize the vastness of this place. So this was the treasure vault. He looked around. Although there were no items on display, he could still sense the presence of countless precious things. There are many types of treasures here that I've only heard the names of. This must be the treasure vault of Archmage Nit. While Lewin was engrossed in observing his surroundings, immersed in the overwhelming vastness and gloom of the treasure vault, a low voice suddenly echoed right behind him, making Lewin start in vigilance, his whole body tense as he spun around. You look so lost! He turned around. Who was that? Lewin wondered, his alert gaze scanning for the owner of the voice. That person continued, tone carrying depth, as if reading every thought hidden deep in Lewin's mind. As if you don't realize your true value. At this moment, Lewin realized the voice was strangely familiar. It was Kingram sitting firmly on a chair placed right in the middle of the room. Kingram, why is he here? But what caught Lewin's attention more and left him in absolute shock was his appearance, as he was no longer a mindless statue. Instead, Kingram was present in his true human form, vivid and powerful. He was no longer a stone statue. As if reading Lewin's mind easily, Kingram explained, his voice deep but still hiding mystery. Surprised I'm not a stone statue anymore. This is the only place I'm allowed to use this body. Thanks to the ancient mana filling this room, I can exist in my original body and am no longer a treasure. Hearing this, he replied softly, I understand. Lewin looked up at him, eyes full of suspicion at Kingram's earlier words. But hey, what do you mean by I don't know my true value? Kingram's sharp teeth seemed clearer, exuding a terrifying look as he spoke. Literally, you have no idea what your true value is. Even the treasure you are using is similar to Draka's. Kingram's next words were like a knife stabbing straight into Lewin's heart, making him realize a shocking truth. He knows about the treasure, Lewin thought, heart filled with shock. He looked back down at him, his gaze sharp as if piercing through every thought. That is a rare treasure in the world. How did you get it? And what is your relationship with Draka? Kingram stopped, waiting for Lewin's answer. However, Lewin looked back at him seriously. His voice held curiosity and a bit of helplessness. I'm also wondering about that. Who is Draka? He looked at Lewin in silence for a while before beginning to explain, his tone carrying nostalgia and reverence. A being who wanted to become a god. One day, he visited the Peak tribe where I lived. At that time, he was small and short, looking quite unsightly. However, his power was so extraordinary that no one in the Peak tribe could respond to it. More importantly, with each passing day he grew stronger, so even if we elves attacked him all at once, we couldn't defeat him. We respected him, he lived with us like a member of the tribe. He taught magic language to me, the one about to become the future patriarch, for nearly 100 years. What? 100 years? How can a human live for 100 years? Lewin looked up at Kingram once again, his eyes in absolute shock. The rest of him was like one. Lewin's reason almost couldn't believe what he had just heard. Kingram laughed cunningly, his sharp teeth shining in the room's dim light. Maybe because he wasn't human. This affirmation was like a heavy blow, revealing an unimaginable truth about Draka, sparking countless new questions in Lewin's mind. His true identity is the Black Dragon Dracagania. Kingram's words echoed, a huge shock struck Lewin. Unbelievable? Lewin blurted out, his voice choked with surprise. So dragons really do exist? He was immediately shocked by the information before him. He asked softly, just to be sure once more about the information he had just received. Is that true? Right, you don't know that dragons are the source of magic? He answered quickly, without hesitation. Sure enough, Lewin pondered, he had heard about this before, but it was just an empty claim. He had thought everything was just a legend. Lewin's mind suddenly became chaotic. Old knowledge suddenly collapsed before this terrifying truth. He continued to cut off Lewin's train of thought with another piece of information. However, Draka could not use magic. He interrupted his thoughts with another piece of information. That is also the reason he created a fighting style like yours by using magic on his hands and feet. Do you understand what that means? Kingram paused, posing a profound question to him. He gradually understood. A light flashed in his mind, connecting the disjointed pieces. So surely Draka had also been treated like him in the past. He immediately answered, imagining in his head the silhouette of a person covered completely in a mysterious way. I think I understand a little bit now. Kingram continued, his tone turning even gloomier. Draka created a power that only he could wield, a way to transform magic into pure physical strength, just as you have done. By mastering that power, Draka became the strongest entity in the world. However, he remained unsatisfied and continued to expand his power toward infinity. In the end, he destroyed everything, including himself. Lewin was once again stunned by this new information. He destroyed everything, so that's why he's known as the World Destroyer. Lewin couldn't imagine the magnitude of a power that could annihilate an entire world. A sense of awe mixed with a creeping fear settled in his heart as he visualized that terrifying strength. Suddenly, a familiar system interface appeared before Lewin with new content. You have achieved a milestone, seeking the traces of Draka. Reward, title Ally of the Goblins. Skill, Goblin's Rage, Spirit Trang, Embodiment of Strength. You have received the title Ally of the Goblins. Title effect, increases affinity with goblins and allows communication with them. Lewin read each line, bringing a hand to his chin in thought. Why a communication reward all of a sudden? Well, it's better than nothing. Despite his confusion, he accepted the unexpected gifts. The system panel flashed again, displaying details for the new skill, Goblin's Rage, active. Borrow power from the rage of a goblin to instantly increase physical strength. Strength reaches 300 for 30 seconds. The effect will gradually increase under the influence of physical body skills. Cooldown, 3 minutes. Staring seriously at the reward information, Lewin muttered, "This seems to be a high-tier skill." As he reached out his hand, a glossy green sphere immediately appeared, resting in his palm. However, there were several pre-existing cracks on the sphere, as if it had existed for a very long time and endured much damage. Trang, the embodiment of strength? What exactly is this? It just appeared in my hand, Lewin wondered, his curiosity tinged with anxiety. Kingram stood up from his stone throne, his massive frame casting a shadow over the room. It seems you've received your quest reward. Draka used to stare into empty space and talk to himself just like that. Kingram's words acted as confirmation, leaving Lewin with no doubt about what he was experiencing. Still holding the green sphere, Lewin looked up, his eyes full of questions. In that case, do you know what this is? Kingram responded with a confident tone. Indeed, bring it here for me to see. Leaning down to inspect the glowing sphere in Lewin's hand, Kingram examined it thoroughly before concluding. It is Strang. Eager for more information, Lewin listened as Kingram spoke with profound gravity. An item? No, it is not an item, it is an embodiment. Lewin looked back at the sphere in his hand skeptically, barely able to believe his ears. What? This thing is an embodiment. Kingram spoke convincingly as if he had witnessed the history himself. He was always by Draka's side. How could I not know? Looking at its current state, I'd wager Draka sealed him within this spirit stone before he died. He continued to explain Strang's nature. He is an embodiment of power. Although called a spirit, he is unlike ordinary spirits. He has a fiery temper and begged Draka for infinite power every day. But if you satisfy his hunger, he will grant you infinite strength in return, Kingram concluded, revealing a pact of great power but potential peril. You mean this embodiment will be reborn from this stone? Lewin frowned, lifting the sphere higher. It looked slightly more cracked than it had moments ago. Tiny fissures were beginning to web across the surface. Precisely, you need not worry too much, Kingram reassured him. As Kingram finished his sentence, the unexpected happened. The sphere suddenly broke further, the fissures growing into large cracks until the object was about to burst. Lewin held it tight, watching it shatter. It's breaking, he screamed internally in surprise. But instead of what he had imagined, a small creature fitting perfectly in Lewin's palm appeared as the smoke and fragments vanished. Lewin stared at it, sheer amazement written on his face. This is the bear. Then the creature rubbed its eyes and began to scold him in a shrill, annoyed voice. You brat, did you just call me a bear? This bear could actually talk. Why can a bear talk? Lewin's internal questions and visible shock only made the creature gnash its teeth in fury. Stop seeing me as a bear, you little! It shrieked and growled, its irritable voice echoing throughout the vast treasure room. Feeling that Lewin's comments had crossed a line, the Strang bear sulked and pointed a finger directly at his face. Stop looking at me like a bear, Lewin replied helplessly, but you are a bear. Lewin's face showed utter bewilderment, a drop of sweat rolling down his cheek. How can a bear talk? The creature turned red with anger. Hey, are you deaf? It stood with hands on its hips, head steaming with rage, talking a mile a minute. How dare you compare me to those things? I am not a bear, Lewin asked. Then what are you? It crossed its arms and gave a smug, confident giggle. I am an embodiment. I can turn into whatever I like. Wanting to prove itself, it put on a face full of energy and determination. Watch this, I'll show you my power. Hearing that, Lewin waited expectantly. Yet nothing impressive happened at all. The creature's face turned pale, completely losing its color. It was an incredibly embarrassing moment for Strang. After a moment of silence, it panicked, unable to believe the irony. What's this? Where is my power? Lewin's face clearly read WTF, wondering what it was doing. It suddenly spoke up, it must be because I was reborn on an empty stomach. Give me food. Lewin watched and appraised the situation. Why is this bear so rude? He gave it some bad news. There's no food here, I don't even know what you eat. This hit the creature like a bolt of lightning, it shrieked in despair. What? No food? Why is my master so weak this time? Lewin was confused. Master me. Too bored to even argue, it ignored the world, curled into a ball like a piece of cotton candy and fell asleep. Whatever, I'm sleepy, call me when it's mealtime. Lewin was beyond helpless. What's going on? Calls me master, then calls me weak. He gently placed the sleeping Strang on his shoulder. The innocent scene made even Kingram chuckle. Indeed, a leopard cannot change its spots. Seeing it again brought back a wave of nostalgia for him. Looking at you and Strang reminds me so much of the old days. He seemed to sink into a stream of memories, recalling the days of confronting Strang and Draka in the past while they were still with the Zenith clan. Ending the chain of memories, he sat regally on his chair in the vast treasure room, his gaze fixed on the boy. Lewin Ardal, the tiny destroyer carrying Draka's will, what do you intend to do? Lewin asked back. About what? He quickly replied, the power you hold will make you stronger. It can lead you to the righteous path or it can consume you. I ask again, once you become powerful, what will you do? Hearing this, the boy fell into deep thought for a long time. The reason he wanted this power was to protect his loved ones from monsters, to bring honor to his family name, to prove himself to those who dared to look down on him. Lewin smiled contentedly. Yes, that is enough. He had too much to protect to let this opportunity slip away. Having cleared his mind, he looked up with a look more determined than ever. I will live according to my own will for my loved ones, my family, and myself. Sensing that the brat in front of him was quite impressive, Kingram nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, I shall look forward to that future of yours. Lewin had learned more about Draka thanks to Kingram, and each day continued to start with quests. The only thing that changed was the training ground. Currently, Lewin was practicing diligently, wiping away the sweat from his exhaustion while calling out, "Strang, wake up. Do you plan on skipping your meal?" Hearing the word food, it immediately woke up, its eyes sparkling and drool dripping from its mouth. Eating. As if the food would vanish if it were a second late, it quickly ran up onto his body. While waiting for Lewin to cast magic, it opened its small mouth wide. Gulp! Lewin glanced over at its gluttony, feeling helpless. This little guy is crazy about food and he eats so much. It focused on scooping up the 3 flames burning on Lewin's hands. The crimson streams of fire curled and flowed into its mouth. After eating its fill, it patted its chest with satisfaction and let out a loud burp. I feel much better now, Lewin thought to himself. The food I'm referring to is the strength gained from quests. Strang eats my strength. Strang, embodiment of strength, a 1-star spirit that uniquely reacts to the primal essence of power. Strength is proportional to the vessel. The larger the vessel, the higher the power. Once challenged 7 kings alongside the black dragon Dracagania before being destroyed. After it had finished eating and drinking, Lewin's strength points increased thanks to the special companion skill. He praised it. You are useful after all. It puffed its chest out with pride. Naturally, Lewin confirmed the details. Each time you grow stronger, I will receive a maximum of 100 strength points. Ah, it explained. If I reach 2 stars, it'll be 200, 3 stars, 300. It keeps increasing like that. Before I was sealed, I had over 31 stars. Lewin felt a chill run down his spine. 31 stars, 3,100 strength points. I haven't even reached 1,000 yet and I'm already this strong. It seemed the news made him feel a bit envious, wanting to reach that level of power quickly. How did Draka do it? Besides quests, is there any other way to increase strength? Sensing his thoughts, it gave a sinister laugh. Hee, now you realize my value. If you want to know, give me a drink first. Lewin threatened it. Fine, don't tell me, don't blame me when you're starving. Seeing that even a worm will turn, it replied shyly, all right, I'll tell you. It explained in detail there are many ways to increase strength, for example, performing high-difficulty quests to get better rewards, forging items that boost strength, or searching for treasures. Or you could even cook goblin tendons to refine your power. Then it threw a wet blanket on him, but those methods won't suit you right now. Lewin wondered why. It plopped down on his shoulder, arms crossed and pouting mockingly. You need at least 1,000 strength points to even attempt those. Your strength growth rate is too fast, your body is only at a toddler stage. Lewin's lips tightened as he fell into a silent, pensive mood. And here I thought I had grown strong. Turns out I'm only at the beginning. So the goal now is to reach 1,000 strength points. Thus, he had to continue training as before. He practiced every day to increase his strength, eventually reaching a threshold of 930. The third part of the exam, actual combat, officially began. Upon arriving at the arena, Strang asked, "Are you fighting in a match today?" Lewin was overflowing with confidence. Yes, I've been waiting for this day for a long time. This test aimed to check the risk management skills of mages. It was perhaps the most important part. At that moment, Jason was taking his test. He used all his might to cast a fireball spell. But ironically, instead of hitting the monster, it flew straight toward the knights, terrifying them. "Ack, what are you doing? Don't aim at us!" The monster standing nearby also looked on in bewilderment, not understanding what was happening. The proctor, observing from the side, could only shake his head and sigh in weariness. "Sigh, Jason Damon, you are disqualified." He walked out dejectedly, slumping over as his classmates mocked him. "Sir, the foreign knight squad has arrived to support the exam, ensuring student safety and evaluating coordination between both sides." The exam lasted 10 days. Based on their scores, each person would fight different monsters. On the final day, there were a total of 13 students in the high score bracket. Because it was the final day, everyone was curious about what kind of monster would appear. Suddenly, the entire stands shook violently as if there were an earthquake. Everyone's face turned pale with terror. A brown-haired boy spoke up, "What's that sound?" A giant creature appeared, tall and massive, with a ferocious face and sharp fangs bared in a roar. Its appearance made everyone scream in fear. Is it a water monster? Water monsters live in scattered packs across the continent. They are many times larger than humans and possess no less intelligence. They are inherently violent, leading to frequent wars between water monsters and humans. Students around stared wide-eyed, breaking into a sweat. Professor, are you sure this will be okay? What if someone dies because of the water monster? Professor Heidel explained calmly, you are all mages, so you must always remain rational. Treat this as real and give it your all. Despite the fear in their hearts, they responded loudly and clearly. Yes, sir. A moment later, the test officially began. As soon as it was released, the monster let out a frenzied roar and charged. It lunged at a knight with its muscular arms, forcing him to quickly raise his shield for protection. While they held back the massive water monster, Mikkel took the opportunity from behind to cast his ice magic. Ice arrows flew out from his hands, ordinary ice. Unfortunately, those arrows only hit the ground. It performed an ambush from the air. By the time anyone realized, it was already overhead. Someone screamed, above you. Professor Heidel, observing from the side, also shouted in worry, Mikkel, get out of the way. But his entire body was stiff, trembling uncontrollably. Although he muttered about retaliating for the previous day, fear kept him from moving. Sensing the situation was dire, Heidel had to intervene. Stop. Before the monster could attack Mikkel, thousands of vines grew from the ground, binding it, much to his amazement. Furious at being played by these humans, it roared and struggled frantically. Despite being bound, it remained aggressive, reaching toward him with a growl. He fell back in panic. His face was pale, truly drained of color. The result of his pathetic performance was Heidel's cold voice, Mikkel Garihil, you are disqualified. His uncle Elric slammed his hand on the table in rage. He gnashed his teeth. Damn it, another failure. He intended to interfere with Lewin's part of the test, so he immediately turned to Professor Tyrion Ignit. Ah, headmaster, do you intend to continue the exam? Hearing that, Tyrion turned in curiosity. What do you mean? Elric revealed his objective. It's almost Lewin's turn, right? He responded with a clearly sarcastic look. Lewin is the only one Kingram gave a perfect score to. It would be a bit unfair to evaluate him the same way as the other students, wouldn't it, Professor? He stroked his beard slowly. I see your point, but we don't have any other monsters. He revealed his true nature with a sinister smile. Oh, we do. When the foreign Knight Squad brought the water monster, they also brought a goblin along. The headmaster thought for a moment. Using a goblin for the exam was extremely dangerous, but with Professor Heidel present and the line of knights in front, he was truly curious about Lewin's capabilities. In a scene where the path stretched through a magnificent castle, lit everywhere by torchlight, Heidel leaned lazily against the wall with arms crossed, his eyes on the boy walking out from behind the long doors. He called out softly, Lewin. The boy looked up in bewilderment and greeted him back, Professor Heidel. He stepped forward, one hand in his pocket, and gave a gentle reminder, I have to tell you this before the test begins. In today's session, your part will be harder than everyone else's. Lewin still didn't understand. What do you mean, sir? Professor Heidel was very worried for him. The Academy has high expectations for you since Kingram gave you a perfect score. Many say it would be unfair to have you fight the same monster as everyone else, so your test will be more difficult. Lewin frowned. Harder means, the professor replied, your target will not be a water monster, you will fight a goblin. His words made both the human and the bear stare in surprise. A goblin. Strang blinked his round eyes and responded quickly. Aha, your first real enemy is a goblin, this will be fun to watch. The scene shifted to a large, muscular hand pulling hard on a massive iron chain. It was a sturdy goblin of massive proportions with a brownish-orange body, letting out a terrifying roar. Two guards on duty looked at it in fear. Jason asked the person next to him, Elric, in curiosity, is this the leader of the water monsters? The dark-haired man scolded, stupid, that's a goblin. He grimaced in disbelief. A goblin, no way. He gripped the sword in his hand. It's true I made the suggestion. But he was confused and dismissive. But there's no way they'd let a student fight a goblin in an exam like this. How strong could a student possibly be? Goblins have a similar appearance to orcs, but they are many times stronger. They can crush a skull and snap a spine in a single swing. Elric gnashed his teeth and glanced at the person standing behind him. He asked angrily, are you sure? Even knights have trouble catching them. Heidel's face was serious. I am certain, it was the headmaster's instruction. Elric let out a hollow laugh. Ah, you must be betting your life on this exam, Professor. From a distance, black leather boots clicked on the floor, approaching the group. A magnetic voice spoke, yes, I am betting my life. Elric turned his face to look at the newcomer in surprise. You are. The two faced each other. Liuan stared at him. I am Liuan the candidate, he asked back. You. Elric scanned the boy, unable to help his dismissive thoughts. This kid is going to fight a goblin, how is he going to manage that? Elric was still focused on Liuan. The professor and I will protect him, but the boy walked right past him. Elric was startled. Where is he going? He spoke seriously. Hey, you're going the wrong way. What are you doing? Liuan responded as if it were obvious. I am preparing for the test. You're in the wrong position. You should be in the back, the man reminded him irritably. He reaffirmed his position to Elric. I will stand here, the man frowned in confusion. What? Liuan's emerald blue eyes were icy, his face incredibly serious as he explained. My incantation is a bit different. Elric raised his voice. If you stand in front, we won't be able to shield you. It's not as easy to deal with as a water monster, he reaffirmed his point once more. Yes, I know, but the man kept the same attitude. Why are you playing with your life like this? Liuan swept his hand back, discarding his cloak like a modern-day CEO. He was indifferent and didn't explain much. I have no choice. Saying that, he stepped toward the goblin. Elric saw him take such a risk and couldn't help but worry. His brows had been knitted together for quite some time. I don't see any fear in him, he must have something special. Professor Heidel, observing the situation, finally spoke up. Liuan, get ready. Then he shouted, your test officially begins. As he spoke, he snapped his fingers. Click. The shackles on the giant goblin's arms burst open in an instant. They fell to the ground. Its freedom had officially begun. The goblin seemed to explode with energy, roaring in all directions and charging straight at Liuan and the few soldiers holding swords and shields. He was already in a combat-ready stance, his hand sparking with fire magic as he lunged upward, bypassing the shocked soldiers nearby. Elric shouted to stop him. Hey, what are you doing? Does he really dare to face a goblin head-on? Wait, what does he plan to do? He couldn't stop him in time. The goblin and Liuan with his burning magic clashed. The goblin growled, reaching out to summon its power. Boom, the sound of the ground crumbling echoed. Liuan charged forward with a shout, hurling a fireball directly at the goblin. A thundering crash followed as the two intense magical forces collided, lighting up the entire area. Bystanders couldn't withstand the erupting battle force. Everyone was caught up in the fiery confrontation between Liuan and the goblin. Elric's gaze remained fixed on the battle, his expression one of shock. He dares to use a close-range incantation in this situation? Professor Heidel waved away the dust in front of him. He must have anticipated this moment. Liuan certainly did not disappoint his teacher. Of course, only he was calm. The others nearby were wide-eyed, squinting in panic. Even those in the stands were the same. The arena was currently filled with smoke. The soldiers stood frozen, unsure of the outcome. A student dares to fight a goblin in close combat. I hope he's still alive. Before everyone could recover, a back wearing the familiar black shirt emerged from the smoke. Even Elric was startled. He's still alive. Seeing his face only added to the shock. He's still standing. Meanwhile, Liuan was ready to attack again. Heidel's face remained the same, but now it held a clear, smug satisfaction, his forehead practically screaming pride. Suddenly, a hand slapped Liuan's shoulder as a voice called out, Hey. It was Elric. His face was anything but pleasant as he shouted an angry reminder. You almost got yourself killed. He calmly looked straight at him, still nonchalant but politely replied, I apologize. But if I had warned you, would you have let me rush in? Elric heard him say that and didn't know how to refute, so he just asked, why? He shifted his gaze toward the furious goblin. We don't have time to talk right now, let's finish this test. The goblin was obviously angrier than ever. Mr. Elric brushed past Lin, waving his hand as he reminded him, back off. I know you're strong, but this one is very dangerous. Not satisfied with just saying that, he opened his mouth to warn him again, his volume noticeably higher than before. Stand there and let me handle it. Ignoring what Mr. Elric had just said, Liuan nimbly ran ahead and stopped right in front of him. He turned with a serious face. This is my test. Elk, who had been acting like a deaf person, kept asking, what? Liuan still had that determined look. Let me finish my test. A giant ferocious monster appeared. Its body was extremely huge, 5 times larger. Lunny seriously observed the monster with ironclad determination. Behind him, Gutter also seemed quite tense at the risk of a surprise attack. He focused intensely, not wavering at all. There were 2 reasons why he could be this brave. Done, he remembered the goblin possession skill. The title obtained from Kingram would help him talk to goblins. The ferocious monster hissed, "Don't come near here, set me free." He wasn't scared because he understood what it was screaming. In the eyes of others, it was a ferocious monster, but to him, this goblin was feeling terrified because it was surrounded by mages and knights. The second reason was because of the emergency mission he was assigned. Attack first and defeat the enemy. The reward was plus 30 strength points and unlocking the spectator's eye skill. He smiled confidently, charging forward without hesitation, a truly worthy reward for him. For someone who has to repeat a boring mission every day, getting the same amount of points in one mission as 3 days combined. In a flash, he rushed forward, leaving a cloud of dust behind. He summoned a fireball in his hand, leaping up like a gust of wind to the surprise of Mr. Gooter. In an instant, his punch collided head-on with the giant monster lunging down. This created a large shockwave, sparks flying everywhere. It took his blow head-on, roaring in anger. With a bang, the fire swirl sent it flying far away. Very quickly, the objective to attack the enemy in front had been completed. He smirked, "It's not over yet." It roared, its blood-red eyes bulging, sharp teeth gnashing with killing intent. "I will kill you." The monster leaped high up and put all its power into this surprise attack. It yelled loudly, "I will smash your head in." Its blow caused the ground to shake violently. Fortunately, thanks to his long legs, he dodged it lightly. He meticulously observed every movement of the monster. He had to find its weakness. After landing safely, he used time refraction to advance. The captain marveled at his incredible speed. How is he so fast? While moving, he cast fire magic. "I have to get close." Instantly, he closed the distance to it. He aimed for its weak point. The monster hadn't even reacted when the punch slammed straight into its stomach. It let out a shriek. On the knight's side, someone's jaw dropped in surprise. It didn't flinch before the goblin. What exactly is this guy? Someone ducked behind a shield to avoid the flying sparks. The students were just as noisy. "What's going on? Hey, look at that." The goblin was fighting back. It swung a powerful fist toward him, but he blocked it with his bare hands. Not giving up, it used its remaining hand, but he blocked that too. He delivered a kick to its arm. Suddenly, the monster grabbed his leg and tossed him away like a ragdoll without a second thought. His body spun in midair, just like a leaf adrift in a storm. He clung to the wall like Spider-Man, and before he could recover, his eyes widened in surprise. It launched a flaming fist toward him. Fortunately, he dodged just in time. A large section of the wall behind shattered. He landed lightly while the monster turned to look at him. It gnashed its teeth, clearly showing hostility. "You lowly human." He rushed as fast as a squirrel, twisting his body, preparing to swing a kick that stunned it. He unleashed a spinning kick, something he had practiced for a long time, straight into its head. The goblin crashed down, shaking the ground, gravel flying everywhere. He jumped straight onto its chest. Wanting to finish it quickly and cleanly, he activated the Goblin Fury skill, a swirling red aura exploding on his hand. It broke into a cold sweat, trembling as it questioned, "Are you really human?" He replied, "You probably don't need an answer, right?" It widened its eyes in surprise as if it couldn't believe its ears. It wondered, "You understand what I'm saying?" He didn't care much, casting the technique while lazily replying, "You understand me too, right?" It hadn't finished its sentence when explosive fire power, a strike hotter than anything else, slammed straight into its face. Stacking the Goblin Fury effect shifted it into a berserk state. This made controlling the energy source even harder. His pupils contracted, teeth gritted, looking as if he were in pain. Flames shot up, swallowing the monster's giant body. He stopped, the monster's entire body charred, completely defeated. He was vigilant. "Is it over?" Strang stood from afar watching, also admiring. "Not bad, huh? It even exceeded expectations." He stepped off the monster. Maybe because he was exhausted from the fight, he panted heavily. Everyone around was extremely surprised. He defeated the goblin. Looks like it. Everyone cheered excitedly, constantly praising him. "Rock on, Lin, you're so cool." Elric was visibly annoyed, not expecting him to win. Contrary to that attitude, Principal Tyon Ignit smiled with satisfaction. Murmurs didn't cease. A few people still couldn't believe what just happened. He actually defeated the goblin by himself. How? The guard team quickly advanced to examine the monster's body. Mr. Gutter approached him, wondering, "Lewin Ardle, who taught you those spells and combat skills?" He replied, "No one." His face still showed some skepticism. "I taught myself." He looked like a serious young man. "Yes." He turned to the professor who was standing contemplatively beside him. "Professor, how did I do on the test?" He remained silent, thinking for a long time. After a while he spoke, "I thought you couldn't handle it, but I didn't even have the chance to intervene." He looked straight at him. "You always exceed my expectations." he wanted to confirm. So I passed. Just that one sentence made the whole hall erupt in cheers, amidst the ruins still filled with smoke. Lewin, handsome and bright, smiled confidently. The status window appeared, confirming the mission was complete, simultaneously presenting an emergency mission just like before. The reward was the spectator's eye skill and plus 10 strength. He was quite surprised. Spectator's eye. Upon further investigation, it was a skill that allowed him to see the essence of all things, collect and digitize all information, along with unlocking invisibility and seeing others even if they were invisible. Strang stood on Lewin's shoulder looking quite excited. Spectator's eye, now you've become a true player. He turned around. You know about this skill? It grinned maliciously. Of course, it's something only players possess. It stood with hands on its hips, enthusiastically explaining, you can see enemies using invisibility. When that happens, they will have a faint outline. He exclaimed, that's useful, isn't it? Suddenly the status window appeared, minimap unlocked. He wondered, mini, and it smiled triumphantly. This function allows you to observe everything within a 500-meter radius of your position. Additionally, this skill allows you to view the target's status as you please, and the amount of information accessible depends on the target's level. It crossed its arms across its chest, revealing a grinning, arrogant smile. There are still many surprises. Got something new, gotta try it out immediately. It suggested looking at that unconscious goblin and activating the spectator's eye. He glanced down at that giant body. Look at that goblin. He focused intensely, applying energy to use the skill, the status window gradually appearing. It was true, it showed information about that monster from its name, origin, characteristics, to the target's evaluation. After that, he was so surprised he exclaimed, awesome. He wanted to test it on other subjects, the next target being Professor Heidel, but it only showed information about his level. Suddenly he understood, so there are things I can't read. Information is limited. Strang replied, naturally you can't read the information of someone too many levels above you like that. It seriously raised a finger as if lecturing, once you become stronger the amount of information you can access will increase. He listened attentively. He smiled slightly, one hand touching his chin, his lips curling into a scheming half-smile. I understand. After the practical combat test ended, rumors about Lewin defeating the goblins spread everywhere in the academy. On the school campus, he and Jason sat chatting on a stone bench. He teased, Lynn, do you see how everyone is gossiping, He was confused. I don't know, it's my first experience with that. Suddenly a girl with brown hair approached him. That girl spoke shyly, her sparkling eyes seemingly hiding much affection. Are you Senior Lewin? Not only that girl, but two others came up, handing him lunch bags. You were so cool in the third test. Eat this when you're hungry. As soon as he took the bags, they shyly left, leaving him quite confused as the event happened so quickly. He awkwardly handed the bags toward Jason. Do you want to eat this? He panicked and yelled. What? He flew into a rage. You doing this is not respecting the ladies who had to struggle with embarrassment to make lunch for you. He was puzzled. Why are you getting all worked up? Looking at his friend who was sniffling in jealousy in front of him, he thought, this Jason guy, when I used the spectator's eye, the status window said he has huge potential. He shifted over, patting him on the shoulder. In the past few days, I've checked the status of everyone and only you have high potential. He wore a serious expression, but his eyes were full of trust and determination. Jason, try a little harder, I'm sure you'll do great in the next test. He was confused. What, are you sympathizing with me? He immediately denied it. Sympathy? What sympathy? I mean, you have a lot of promise, your skills are all okay, you should regain your confidence and work harder. He was amazed. Really? He advised, yeah, stop messing around, he chuckled. Yeah, okay, in the next test my goal is to make the top 10. He was helpless, that's a bit difficult. 1 second joking, the next he put on a heavy face. Are you serious? Sometimes even I can't believe it. He was confused. What do you mean? He confided, I wonder if you're the same Lewin I've known for the past 6 years. His face flashed with surprise. Oh. Lewin looked up at the high blue sky. Yeah, even I find it hard to believe sometimes, so I understand how you feel. He suddenly remembered. Oh right, there are some rumors about you lately. He questioned. What rumors? He continued. People are saying you will surpass Gary Hill, not just becoming the valedictorian but also the Academy's representative. He didn't care about that at all, stood up tiredly. I don't care about that, let's go inside. Afraid of being left alone, he hurriedly scrambled after him. What do you mean you don't care? This year is the great festival year. Every May, representatives from famous academies would gather, and a magic festival would be held to select the most outstanding person. And every 8 years, all mages would come to the Olympiad Congress to select the strongest person. The Great Festival takes place in years when both events coincide. The Great Festival is a national competition where the brightest students from the academies showcase their abilities. The winner of the Great Festival not only brings home a large sum of money for themselves and their academy but also receives countless privileges. That's why the number of students participating in the Great Festival is limited. 1 person for singles and 30 for the team event. The top 31 of each academy will participate in this major competition, and the single entry in the Great Festival will be the student representative. At the Academy Hall, everyone was enthusiastically discussing the upcoming Congress, with many speculations being raised. Don't know if this year's representative for the festival will be Mikkel again, right? At his dining table, everyone was also discussing this. Jason spoke first. Naturally, Lewin will be the representative. The orange-haired student sitting next to him agreed. True, he's the only one who got 100 points from Kingram. He chewed while reminiscing. And from what I remember, all the times Mikkel participated in the Magic Festival, do you guys remember how he performed? The brown-haired student at the same table hurriedly replied. Remember, the team event was nothing to talk about, but in the individual round, he ranked 4th out of 5. The orange-haired student from earlier laughed mockingly. That's why we're called a bottom-tier academy. Bottom-tier academy? The academy where the team event fails and the individual event isn't any better. Lunch ended, everyone cleaned up their dishes, but this topic hadn't come to an end. The only way for us to get rid of that nickname is Lewin. Do you guys agree? Absolutely. Lewin, what do you think? His face serious. The test hasn't ended yet, he told himself. It's not the time to be arrogant and excited. After all, the person chosen to participate in the Great Festival will be the one at the top of the test and receive nominations from the professors. In the 4th test, one-on-one combat between him and Mikkel is about to take place. He looked straight ahead, gaze determined. That's why I must focus on the next test, he swore to himself. Now my head only thinks about beating him to a pulp. 4 days later, the combat test was taking place at the training ground. Lewin leaped up, unleashing a spinning kick, sweat-soaked, proving he had been practicing for a long time. The status window kept appearing. You have achieved 1,000 strength points. You have received the title, Apprentice Finisher. Strang warmed up, stretching joints. Finally, I've waited for this day. Let's level up right away. It crouched down, concentrating all its might to channel inner energy, the air around gathering toward it. Feeling ready, it leaped up, landing neatly on his shoulder, a powerful flame bursting out all around. The mission difficulty doubled, the reward value tripled. It focused intensely, compressing the flame into its hand. Gulping once, its small body stood straight, head tilted back, trying to use inner energy to release the power outward. Just a moment later, a burning flame like a sun exploded in midair, spreading wide enough to incinerate everything it touched. It turned to look at him, the scorching flame making him instinctively cover his face. What's this flame? Seemingly realizing something, his eyes widened, his pupils contracted as he looked toward it. Elsewhere, Elric stood pondering by the window. It turned out he was remembering the scene where Lewin defeated the goblin, his face sour and miserable. Damn it, in the end, I had to give him points. He imagined him challenging Mikkel, wondering, with Lewin Ardle's current strength, could he defeat Mikkel? Thinking of him being defeated at his feet, he brushed away that thought. That's unlikely to happen. Teeth gritted, he calculated even more things. If he wins Mikkel's position at the Great Festival and the valedictorian title, it will all be shaken. The Garyhill family must remain at the top of this academy. Every muscle in his face tightened, as if holding back an explosion of anger at any cost. Back at the training ground, Strang had reached level 2. It looked exhausted. The wall of fire around had weakened significantly, but in return he received 200 strength points. In his hand was an orange flame burning brightly. He looked at it admiringly, amazed. Strang, you look much stronger. While also expressing gratitude. Oh well, thanks to you I reached 1,200 strength points so quickly. It put hands on hips and puffed out its chest, looking very proud and slightly narcissistic. Ahem. It giggled, mouth curling into a grin, revealing teeth, hand scratching lightly under the chin. This is just the beginning. The mission difficulty and rewards have increased. Both focused on the status window to check. Frequent mission. Physical training 2. Complete all the following tasks: punches, kicks, spinning kicks, 5,000 of each, run 15 km, and combat practice to receive 30 strength points. Liuan looked at it and thought to himself, since I've increased my training intensity, this isn't too difficult. He turned to ask it, so what exactly is that combat training? Suddenly, its face darkened, flashing a villainous grin. Remember when we first met, I told you I could transform into anything. He immediately replied, yeah, I remember. It said triumphantly, from now on I can transform, but there are still limits, you know. So can you turn into a human? I can, but at level 5 turning completely into a human is very difficult. He wondered, then what can you turn into? Its face became sinister. Want to see. Suddenly a small whirlwind appeared, encircling its body. Gradually, the whirlwind grew larger. The whirlwind dissipated and a tattered, mysterious scarecrow appeared, making him unable to suppress a laugh. Is this a straw scarecrow? Not seeing the surprise it expected from him, it got angry. What's with that expression? He chuckled. Nothing, it's just not quite what I imagined. It said narcissistically, don't you dare look down on straw scarecrows. When Draka first started sparring, I was the one who assisted him. He pondered, sparring? You mean you played the role of the target, right? It confirmed firmly, exactly. I'm very useful for missions. From now on, you must practice actual combat with it every day. It controlled a cyclone to spin around itself, acting mysterious. Right now my power is still weak, so I'm only equal to a third circle mage. Deep inside the scarecrow, it laughed deviously. As soon as I regain my strength, I'll be able to take on anything. At that time, whether it's dragons or demons, I'll take them all down. Finding it interesting, he wanted to try it immediately. Alright, let's do it now. What do you want to turn into? He boldly suggested, a mage. As if it hit the right spot, it switched to challenge mode. Oh ho, fine then. Trang concentrated power to create a magic sphere, transforming into a scepter containing a glowing red gemstone. The hand holding the scepter suddenly bulged with rippling muscles. Even if I hit you, it'll only cause a shock, not real damage. Liuan stood calmly, so what about you? Hearing its unfazed answer, he raised his eyelids slightly and spoke. I see, you really are an ideal sparring partner. It didn't waste a moment and cast a fireball. Alright, take this. Having said that, it fired a massive blast of magic at him, which was nothing to Liuan. He nimbly escaped, springing back toward a different direction. He was extremely excited. He felt certain that Mikkel was currently training and couldn't wait to challenge him. Completely contrary to his thoughts, he was currently in Elric's room, staring at a leaf. That bastard is such an eyesore, what should I do now? He said irritably, you brat, how dare you speak like that in front of me? If you had been a bit stronger back then. He wouldn't listen to another word, he waved a hand to interrupt. Fine, don't say anything, uncle, I heard that thanks to you, Liuan's score was raised. Was he struck by a guilty conscience? He didn't hold back his obvious sarcasm. Of course, you're the one who set up that goblin incident after all. His face looked as if he wanted to eat him alive, stepping forward slowly. Thanks to you he got a perfect score. If the family finds out, I think you'll have a hard time too. Not expecting his nephew to dare be so insolent with him, he was bitter but helpless. You little brat, how dare you talk to me like that? He urged irritably, then stop rambling and think of a way to solve this. If he's made the academy representative, then. A firm answer was uttered from his mouth. No, that won't happen, I have an idea. A small emerald green vial sat snugly in his hand. Take this. He recognized it at a glance. Is this the burning blossom, a type of awakening herb? The burning blossom, this flower grows in the illusory regions of the north. It is a rare herb that some use to refine special spirit elixirs. He instructed, drink it and you will reach an awakened state. The casting time for mana will be significantly shortened. He was hesitant. But it dulls the sensation of pain and furthermore it makes it difficult to distinguish between friend and foe. He fixed his gaze intently on him. Right, in other words, you won't see anything at all, you really were paying attention in class. Mikkel completely misunderstood his uncle's point. But why do you want me to drink this? Because, he said angrily, are you crazy? Standing before him, he seemed to lose his rights as a citizen. You have no right to speak here, you already lost to that guy and now you want to bring shame to the family again. However, he understood Professor Heidel's keen eyes. But this is too risky, he knows exactly what my limits are if he finds out I'm finished. He sneered, patting his chest. Did you forget who I am? Checking for stimulants is my job. Like a true pro at playing dirty, he had planned everything carefully. Take this, it helps erase any traces. The remaining purple vial was placed in his hand. Drink the burning blossom first, then this. He reassured his frightened nephew. Don't be afraid for the Yahello lineage, this is the only way to move up, so will you take it or not? Not expecting his uncle to invite him to use stuff like this, he kept hesitating, undergoing deep internal conflict. Finally, the exam, the one-on-one combat, arrived. At this moment, the warm sunlight was pouring down on the exam site, the Mana Barrier Square. Everyone looked down excitedly, the sounds of laughter ringing out constantly. It was always like this whenever the confrontation test took place, the testing area was always packed. And this was the final battle. Lewin and Mikkel stood facing each other, staring intently, the atmosphere falling into a state of tension. With a few rustling sounds, footsteps moved quickly forward. Lewin's expression became solemn. Finally, it's the last test, a direct confrontation with Mikkel. He stood with hands on his hips listening to Trang's reminder. The opponent knows beforehand you only specialize in close combat. If he prepares in advance, it'll be a bit tough. Lewin sneered, but what if I can close the distance? It nodded and answered curtly, then Lewin just needs to land one punch. The man standing between the two of them spoke up. This exam prompt is as close to real combat as possible. Diverse terrain elements have been prepared and arranged in the arena. He asked, are you candidates ready? Both answered clearly. Lewin looked at Mikkel, something just felt off. He frowned and thought, but Mikkel, that bastard. He only saw a strange expression on his face and his entire body became rigid. Lewin gave a preliminary assessment. His condition looks very abnormal. He looked at Mikkel, who was gnashing his teeth and staring at him but had yet to move to attack. He wasn't acting as arrogant as usual, something wasn't right. I have to use the player's eye to check. Then Lewin used the player's eye skill. A circle emitting blue light appeared before his eyes. The information board appeared above his head. Mikkel Yahello, level 3 mage, high potential, magic casting ability, 2, special status, hidden berserk. Lewin felt suspicious, wondering, berserk, what? I've never seen that status before. Furthermore, the system window said it was hidden. Had he done something to hide the use of illegal medicinal ingredients? He remembered Elric before the exam started, students were checked for prohibited substances. Wait, the person responsible for that check was Professor Elric. Mikkel's uncle. Had Professor Elric allowed Mikkel to use something and then covered it up? The man stated the match rules. Listen carefully, this battle only bans one thing, and that is dark magic. You may use all types of magic from the 4 elements and points will be awarded based on the rank of the magic used. He further explained, you don't need to worry about your opponent. Inside this Mana Barrier Hall, magic power is reduced by 99%. Now, does anyone have any questions? Seeing Lewin raise his hand, he asked, what is it, for Lewin Ardal? Mikkel's face became stiff when he heard him ask, what happens if one of the 2 people is caught using a prohibited substance? Hearing that, he spoke seriously, then they will be disqualified and fail this exam. And it could also lead to expulsion depending on the gravity of the matter. But why do you ask, student? Lewin looked at Mikkel and replied indifferently, it's nothing, sir. He spread his arms, signaling the 2 to stand apart and spoke, all right, take your positions. He stood at his position, clenching his fist. Now I can only conclude that, and since only I can see the status window, no one will believe my words. Lewin's gaze became determined. I have to find evidence. The 2 stood opposite each other, a tense aura of imminent conflict filling the air. He took a deep breath and shouted, prepare. As the words begin were uttered, Lewin and Mikkel immediately charged forward to attack. He condensed a sphere emitting blue light and raised his voice. Lewin, go to hell. Immediately after, green vines grew from the ground, tightly binding Lewin's legs. He shifted his feet, and the vines were soon snapped apart. Everyone in the stands gasped in shock. What? How did he escape so quickly? Could it be that Mikkel's incantation has no effect on Lewin? Lewin thought to himself, great, the Mana Barrier Hall reduces the mana power of the candidates, but my physical strength is unaffected. Immediately after, he charged toward Mikkel. He used another move, a pink light along with a skull that was spitting fire at Lewin. Mikkel snarled, do you think that's all I've got? His flame roar technique was unleashed, a fiery red flame shooting directly at Lewin. He used the flash skill, nimbly dodging the erupting flames. After that, Lewin quickly turned to run, the flames still chasing closely behind. The flames followed him as if they were possessed. Lewin quickly jumped up to dodge. He hid behind a rock, the searing heat spreading all around. Lewin shifted slightly to look back. Reduced casting time and increased mana amount. That's the effect of the elixir Mikkel used. Mikkel laughed frantically. Don't hide, come out and face me, you coward. He focused his mind, recalling what he had learned. It's obvious he's more excited than usual. That elixir must certainly be. An image appeared in Lewin's mind of the awakening herb, burning blossom. He listed Mikkel's characteristics. Trembling hands, extreme excitement, reduced pain perception, and difficulty distinguishing friend from foe. It was too clear. Meanwhile, he was still laughing loudly and taunting. Come out, show your face me. Lewin narrowed his eyes. The only thing yet to manifest is the pain suppression effect. He stood up to face Mikkel, speaking suggestively. No wonder you're so confident. Is it because of that stuff? He startled and cried out, what? Lewin calmly looked at Mikkel, who was panicking, and uttered a name. Burning Blossom. His face became stunned upon hearing Lewin's words. Well, it doesn't matter. To take you down, I don't need any of that stuff. He raised his hand, his voice full of mockery. Here I come, Mikkel. Lewin charged forward like an arrow while using the time refraction skill. Mikkel summoned ice and snow while cursing inwardly. Crap, why is he so fast? An ice barrier he created appeared before Lewin. He shouted loudly without flinching, it's useless. Lewin's leg swept across the front, a golden light flashing before Mikkel's shot. Conversations broke out among Tyrian Ignit's group. What kind of magic is that? Is it that kind of magic? Is that even magic at all? In the arena, Mikkel summoned a third circle magic, Fire Salamander, and shouted. Take this, Lewin countered, clenching his fist and delivering a blow, Earth Tremor. The moment that punch landed, Mikkel's Fire Salamander was blown away. It recoiled backward repeatedly, its massive body seemingly in immense pain. The crowd in the stands erupted. He used earth to block fire. Mikkel was knocked back and plopped onto the ground, screaming no in agony. Suddenly his pupils contracted in terror, his entire face turning rigid. Mikkel looked up at Lewin, who was looking down at him, his voice dropping significantly. Don't come near me. He snapped his fingers and laughed coldly. Don't be such a coward, take this. Mikkel watched as Lewin's thumb and middle finger met, his voice becoming tremulous. As his hand drew nearer, a golden light also flashed accordingly. After a boom, the scenery inside and outside the mana barrier square returned to normal. As Lewin's two fingertips separated, that golden light grew large and shot toward Mikkel. Everyone in the stand stood up simultaneously, only to see the arena obscured by thick clouds of dust blocking their view. Mikkel's eyelids drooped slightly. The scene before him left him somewhat surprised, because Mikkel was currently hanging his head, chuckling. Lewin, you dare look down on me. He had just finished his sentence and barely scratched his forehead before Lewin lunged forward and slammed his head into the side of Mikkel's face. Not giving him a chance to counter, he unleashed a flurry of punches. With a thud, Mikkel slammed into a rock and lay sprawled on the ground. His body shook in intervals, yet his laughter echoed. So weak, and yet you think you can beat me? Didn't feel a thing. Lewin thought to himself, to take those hits and still be conscious. At this rate, Mikkel might die from excessive shock. He grabbed Mikkel's shoulder to pull him up. Continuing would be very dangerous. Next, he was lifted high by the winding green trunks called the prison trees. Lewin raised his hand and spoke. Professor, has Mikkel been using prohibited substances? He walked over and asked doubtfully, what do you mean? Why would Mikkel use prohibited substances? Are you sure? If you're lying, you could be disqualified. Lewin was determined. Yes, I'm sure, because it's possible the substance use was covered up. He continued, or someone found out but turned a blind eye. He hesitated. Do you mean? Lewin spoke deeply, looking nearby. The person capable of using rare ingredients and responsible for the pre-match check. He also looked toward Elric. His voice rang out again. There is only one person in this entire academy who could do that. Lewin acted hesitant. Come to think of it, isn't Professor Elric also Mikkel's uncle? Wait, then, could it be that Professor Elric has? Elric ran over in a panic. Lewin, do you know what you're saying? He snapped irritably. You're saying Mikkel used prohibited substances and I turned a blind eye. Yet Lewin was not afraid, responding calmly, yes, I have evidence. Elric startled at the words. What? He burst out laughing. Great, then let's check again. He walked toward a different direction. No need, Professor, after all, you already used a special spirit elixir to hide his symptoms. Elric became flustered. So what do you want? Where is this evidence you speak of? Lewin touched a large tree trunk and laughed. Let me show you all with your own eyes. Immediately after, there was a loud explosion. a golden light flashing in the middle of the tree trunk. His hand remained in the same position as before, his fingers still spread wide. Liyuan looked at the large chunk missing from the tree. This was my forehead flick from earlier. He reasoned that even if Mikkel's magic had increased through training, there's no way he could take those consecutive hits and still be laughing consciously. In his current state, I think his skull is rattling violently and at least 3 ribs are broken. His eyes were bloodshot, but he didn't care and kept laughing. Liyuan said, and yet he still laughs as if he feels no pain at all. Elric's face turned rigid when he heard the question. Do you have anything else to deny, Professor Elric? Above, Tyrion Ignit stood up and raised his voice. Professor Elric. Seeing his guilty expression, he had his own answer. Tyrion Ignit shouted angrily, how dare you do such a thing in a sacred place like this? Professor Elric, follow me to the office immediately. Hearing his angry tone, Elric looked toward his nephew hesitantly, only to see that he had no idea how serious the current situation was, giving Mikkel's mindless laughter. Then the Tyrion Ignit exam also passed quickly. The corruption of the Garyhill lineage was exposed. People's chatter echoed in the hallway. I heard Professor Elric was fired and Mikkel was expelled too. I have a new nickname. Someone put an arm around Liyuan's shoulder and giggled. Hey, expulsion Saint Liyuan. Thump thump, footsteps echoed steadily through the silent space. At this moment, Liyuan was standing in front of a massive door. The surrounding space lit up because Liyuan had been summoned by the headmaster. He felt as if time had stopped. There was not a sound to be heard in his ears. Suddenly, a soft noise echoed, and he immediately lifted his head to look up. His eyes widened in shock, filled with complete disbelief. It was because Liyuan was currently standing in a large grassy field and in front of him sat a red chair. Liyuan looked around in confusion. This was the Ardell territory. He muttered to himself, this doesn't seem right. Then Liyuan looked at the object in front of him again. And there it was. He looked at the chair and realized the Thuron throne was the seat of the Supreme Mage. Why was it here? The voice of Tyrion Ignit suddenly sounded from behind. See anything, Liyuan? He turned around to greet him. Oh, hello, teacher. He spoke while walking. This place was created by the eyes of Man Larok. Have you heard of Man Larok's eyes? Liyuan followed closely behind him and replied, yes, I have heard of them. As far as he knew, Man Larok was the leader who had initiated the war to invade the Frelia continent. Legend had it that he had the ability to make a person see the thing they desired most. After his death, his body was refined into a treasure. Tyrion Ignit glanced back and continued, the eyes of Man Larok are the treasure that helps you see what you want to see. What appeared before your eyes just now was exactly what you desire most. Liyuan bowed his head slightly, thoughts flashing through his mind. The things I desire most are to restore the Ale territory and become the most powerful mage. He suddenly asked, are you curious about what I see? Liyuan curiously asked, what do you see, teacher? Tyrion Ignit chuckled, his gaze filled with warmth. A world where everyone acts according to their duty. Students are students and mages are mages. At this moment, the two were standing in front of a door. He continued, of course, that is not easy at all. Liyuan responded softly, yes. With a click, the thick, heavy door swung open on its own. Just as Liyuan prepared to step inside, he turned his head to look back. The image of him holding the championship trophy appeared, with the boys tossing Liyuan into the air, shouting loudly, Liyuan won, Liyuan won. Then came the image of Liyuan wearing a graduation cap and a voice rang out, congratulations to the valedictorian, student Liyuan Ardell. The corners of Liyuan's mouth twitched, creating a slight, subtle curve that was hard to see if one wasn't looking closely. The scene shifted to another place. In the quiet space, a soft noise suddenly rang out. A cup of tea was placed on the table with an invitation to have some tea. Liyuan nodded and replied, yes, thank you, teacher. Tyrion Ignit watched silently as he picked up the tea and took a sip. After Liyuan finished the tea, he asked, I called you here because I have something to ask you. Will you give me an answer among all the banned substances? Tyrion Ignit clasped his hands together, his voice turning serious. How did you know that what Mikkel used was blazing flower? Liyuan said nothing, seemingly organizing the answers in his head. Then he listed the characteristics. Mikkel's attitude was not the same as usual. He was aggressive but restless. Not to mention the amplification and mana flow were abnormal, so I guessed he used blazing flower. Ignit asked again, but from what I can see, you seemed certain, not just guessing. Why is that? Liyuan frowned and explained, the arena's mana barrier only reduces magical power, not physical strength, And what I used was physical strength, not magic. He told himself not to mention the player's eye. Liyuan's voice dropped. I'm sure he was in shock, yet he could still grin and show no signs of pain. That only proves he used blazing flower. He inwardly praised the boy for being only 16 but sharp enough to detect even the smallest changes in his opponent. Not to mention that in that situation, he remained very calm, combined with his perfect magical ability. Tyrion Ignit placed his hand on the table and spoke firmly, "As the headmaster of the academy, I am very sorry about this incident. I sincerely apologize, Student Liyuan. I will ensure the Garyhill family cannot harm you." Having said that, he stroked his long white beard and said, "One more thing, I have a suggestion." Liyuan was stunned when he heard Tyrion Ignit's words. "Do you want to attend the Grand Festival this July as an Academy representative?" Although he had mentally prepared himself, he couldn't hide his surprise. Academy representative, a position everyone craved. When he arrived here, he had already vaguely guessed it. Liyuan closed his eyes tightly, trying to steady his mind, as if thinking about a very serious problem. Tyrion Ignit listened attentively for his answer. "Thank you, teacher. I feel very honored to receive this proposal." But Liyuan's voice became hesitant. "But you know I still lack experience. I haven't had a single real combat fight in the past 5 years." He bowed his head slightly, his voice dropping a few notches. "During that time, I couldn't do anything, and I didn't achieve anything because of my mana disorder. The Grand Festival is a gathering of only the most talented people. I don't know if I have enough strength to compete with them." Tyrion Ignit's voice sounded, making Liyuan look up. "That's not a problem as a judge at the Grand Festival." He raised his index finger and said with certainty, "I think you deserve the title of championship candidate." He hesitated and asked, "What did you say, teacher? Championship candidate?" Tyrion Ignit stroked his long beard and said, "I assure you that you are a very potential contestant, but what is even more terrifying is..." Liyuan's face flashed with a shade of embarrassment when he heard him speak. "You will be a secret weapon that no one expects." Tyrion breathed a long sigh of satisfaction. "To them, you are a mystery. They have no information about you, don't know what techniques and fighting style you will use, and of course they won't find a way to counter you." Hearing this, he secretly rejoiced. "So that's it? I've always been at the bottom, so they aren't on guard and they don't have as much information on me as they do on someone like Mikkel. It looks like this will be an easy surprise." Liyuan's 2 hands clenched the hem of his pants when he heard him ask, "What do you think, participate or not?" After putting on a look of deep thought, he gave his answer, "I will try my best not to let you down, teacher." Suddenly, there was a knock on the door outside. Tyrion Ignit said, "Just in time, come in." He looked at the person arriving and then said to him, "Liyuan, I think a physical skills class will be more useful for you than a magic class. I have invited this professor to help you develop those skills." Upon hearing the greeting, "Are you still well?" the boy was at a loss. Liyuan was stunned for a moment. This is..." The person who arrived was Gutter Perante. He laughed teasingly. "What's with that face? Are you not happy to see me?" Liyuan recognized this person. He was the captain of the knights in the Foreign Territory, one of the few A-level knights in the Jadi Kingdom. He remembered this was also the person he had met during the 3rd exam. Looking at Gutter sitting in front of him, Liyuan couldn't help but exclaim, not expecting to take a physical skills class with him. The man then spoke up. "First of all, I need to confirm a few things." Gutter asked, "I heard Professor Heidel say you are a special mage because you can only fight in close combat. Is that true?" He nodded slightly and replied, "Yes, that is true." He gave his assessment of Liyuan. "From what I've seen, your movements are quite good, fast, clean, without a single wasted motion." He stiffened when he heard Gutter say, "But honestly speaking, one look is enough to tell you've never learned martial arts." He lowered his voice. "Your moves might have worked on that goblin earlier, but against us you will be completely red. No matter how strong you are, opponents with good physical skills can recognize your attacks through the way you move your shoulders and hips." His hands on his knees curled slightly. Liyuan thought to himself, "He's right. My moves are just repetitive motions from quests, so I can't apply much when fighting." Suddenly, Gutter stood up. "But don't worry, if you learn from me, your movements will change from the very basics." He looked directly into his eyes. "So let's start right now." Then the two moved their practice location to another place. Gutter's voice rang out, "For a knight, the most important thing is the feet. If your feet are steady, your sword swings will be strong. Furthermore, your feet will help you predict the enemy's next move, so your first lesson will be to walk correctly. He sat on the platform and said, only when you learn to walk correctly can you use physical skills. Lewin held out his hand, looking serious as he followed Gutter's instructions. Heavenly martial arts is a martial art often used in training knights. Each punch was continuously thrown, a whooshing sound echoing in the space. He slowly stood up, watching Lewin punch the air, and said, this discipline includes a total of 36 martial arts stances, not to mention sword techniques. He was still diligently practicing, his hand clenched into a fist, his whole body ready to rush forward. Punch after punch smashed into the air, the sound of wind being torn constantly echoing. Nearby, Gutter crossed his arms in front of his chest, silently observing Lewin's every action. His expression turned serious, remembering what the boy had said earlier, that he was curious. At that time, Lewin had asked, what do you even gain from teaching me martial arts? Plus, every day you have to come to the academy. So why, teacher? Gutter had replied then, just consider it a type of investment. Hearing that, he suspiciously asked, investment? He stroked his chin thoughtfully. I met someone who has the potential to become a talented mage in the future. If I contribute to supporting that person. Lewin remained silent as Gutter continued. Then it's considered a worthy investment, right? Then he bowed deeply. Then I am counting on you, Professor Gutter. Suddenly, he coughed awkwardly and suggested, actually, calling me Professor sounds so stiff. Just call me Hyung, I'm only in my 20s. Hearing this age, Lewin was startled in surprise. No way. Returning to the present, he was still diligently practicing. Lewin punched from this side and swung to the other. Gutter nearby observed calmly. He was somewhat satisfied. This kid is pretty good, he's got guts. Gutter remembered back when he was examining the goblin's wound, while whispers echoed in his ears. Did the goblin's jaw really break? Watching Lewin kick high, he inwardly sighed. A close combat mage who is stronger than a goblin is truly an interesting kid. And just like that, 3 weeks passed. Lewin looked at the notification from the system. Body art skill leveled up. Body art reached level 10. Obtained title, My Body is a Weapon. Reward, increased Mage Berserk skill effect. With Mage Berserk, you can now channel mana throughout your body. He told Chang, mastering heavenly martial arts was worth it, wasn't it? He laughed triumphantly. Of course, thanks to that I reached level 3. Lewin looked at the notification. Strength 2130. His hand slowly curled into a fist. This strength is huge, I can feel it very clearly. Chang sighed. The speed at which you achieved this strength is even more terrifying. It took over 1.5 years after meeting me for Draka to reach 2,000 strength points. Is it because of the difference in time perception between humans and dragons? Suddenly, a voice called out from afar. Lewin saw Jason running over breathlessly. Lewin curiously asked, Jason, what's wrong? He rested his hands on his thighs, panting, and asked, have you seen it? He suspiciously asked back, seen what? Jason replied, the list of contestants for the Grand Festival has been posted at the Academy Gate. Lewin was stunned, wondering to himself, Grand Festival. Memories flashed in Lewin's mind and a voice rang out, first place, Lewin Ardle. At the opening ceremony, I represented the new students on the podium. Because of that, I became the object of envy and suspicion. To respond to this jealousy, I engaged in pathetic behaviors for the past 5 years. All I could do was stand from afar and watch Mikkel receive everyone's congratulations. And now, Lewin and Jason were rushing toward the academy gate. By the time the two ran there, they saw a crowd gathering in front. When he saw the content of the announcement, he couldn't help but shout, drawing the attention of everyone around. Lewin seemed not to believe his eyes. Did I really become a representative? The boys also recognized him. Isn't that Lewin? Then they ran toward Lewin and shouted, congratulations on becoming a representative. Lewin, I will root for you at the Grand Festival. It had been a long time, but finally I became a representative for the Academy once again. Lewin smiled brightly at the people nearby. Jason was so happy he was about to cry. I also have my name on the list at position 31 in the group competition. The scene shifted to another place. Heidel praised him. I was surprised when Gutter said you had mastered heavenly martial arts. His voice became hesitant, but an S-class student at 16. Sometimes your genius talent makes me feel afraid. Then Heidel changed his tone, becoming determined. I believe you can do it, Lewin. And just like that, the preparation for the Grand Festival went smoothly. Just in time, we arrived at Intan, where the grand festival is held. At this moment, everyone was waiting for the train to arrive. People's whispers chattered, "We're going to get on the Mana train here. This is the first time I've ridden one. I heard it's extremely fast." Lewin stood among the crowd. Conversations echoed in his ears. "There are only 2 transit points in the kingdom of Jadi, but they say there are over 100 transit points in the Ya Empire. Of course, they are an empire. We are the smallest nation among the small nations." Lewin and Jason frowned simultaneously when they heard someone click their tongue. "Country bumpkins, making such a fuss over a simple Mana train ride." He said arrogantly, "Stop acting like country bumpkins and be quiet." Jason snapped, "What?" Then he angrily shouted, "Have you said enough, you jerk?" Lewin listened and just remained silent without getting involved. He recognized this guy. That jerk was Hankus, Mikkel's lackey, the person who participated in last year's magic festival with him. Hankus didn't care and continued, "If you think Lewin will create some miracle at the grand festival, give it up. He's so arrogant just because he got a high score in the first semester." The boy next to Hankus chimed in, "That's right, representatives from other academies are like ghosts. We would have a higher chance of winning if Mikkel, you who have fought against them, were chosen as the representative." Jason was so angry he was shaking when he heard that guy declare, "Whatever, I won't accept Lewin as the academy's representative, so you guys can look out for yourselves." He yelled, "What?" Lewin was silent. "There are many jerks who want to benefit even a little bit by clinging to the Garyhill family, but I have to do well in this competition, even if I have to be on the same team as those jerks." Chang stood on his shoulder and laughed. "Lewin, are you in a tough spot, aren't you?" Hankus glanced toward the sound. "Mikkel will probably be pleased." Lewin smiled coldly. "Those dogs are still loyal to their master, even when their master is about to be kicked out." Hankus walked toward him and raised his voice. "Did you just call us dogs?" Lewin laughed. "Thank goodness, I tried to speak as clearly as possible for someone with your intellect to understand. So do you understand what I meant?" He continued, "Just because you're the Academy's representative." Before Hankus could finish, he cut him off. Lewin's voice became serious. "This grand festival will be on a different level than the magic festivals you've participated in before. If you get good results, you'll have better opportunities that the Garyhill family can't give you." Hankus acted as if he heard something ridiculous and laughed out loud. "Of course, if we get good results, everything will be like that. But is that feasible? The participants in this competition are monsters. In the end, our fate is to be stuck in the kingdom of Jadi and work under the Garyhill family. You shouldn't dream anymore." His voice remained calm. "We can do it." Lewin turned away. "The Grand Festival is an event where unity is the most important thing. It's better for us to remove elements that hinder teamwork." Hankus saw that and called out, "So that means you'll compete without us." He gave him a meaningful statement. "On the way there, you should rethink who the representative is right now." Hankus was so angry he gritted his teeth when hearing Lewin speak. "And there's no Garyhill house here to recognize your loyalty." He screamed furiously, "You're ruining your first individual match. I won't listen to any of your orders at the grand festival." Click-clack echoed repeatedly. The train was moving fast through the forest. Inside the train, everyone looked outside and exclaimed, "It's so fast." Chang stood on his shoulder and laughed. "What's going on here? The world has become a better place. In my time, the fastest means of transportation was..." And Lewin's expression seemed incredibly embarrassed. Suddenly, at the nearby door, footsteps rang out. Then a voice spoke up in Lewin and Jason's ears. "Oh, I think I smelled a loser somewhere." There were 3 boys standing there, and the one in the middle spoke up mockingly. Well, who do we have here? Country bumpkins from the stupid academy." Lewin looked at the pattern on the chest of the guy who had just spoken. That pattern, Yoda National Magic Academy. As far as he knew, the Yoda National Magic Academy, the only training school in Yoda, the Kingdom of Sand, was built on a desert. Famous for its ancient history, they were especially known for hunting their swordsmanship and bodies to the maximum. Lewin suspiciously looked that way. "And what are people from the Yoda National Magic Academy doing here?" Sita raised his voice to ask, "Hey, you stupid academy brats, where is Mikkel Garyhill? Surely he didn't run away because of the setback. I was planning to ask him to take care of us this year." He laughed loudly. "Take care of us like a slave, that is." Sita waved his hand at the people near him. "Are you responsible for the last position this year too? Let's get along well." Chang covered his mouth and chuckled. "Oh my, look how patient you are. Lewin can actually sit still while listening to this. Lewin looked toward Theta, who was laughing, thinking to himself, I didn't know before because I'd never been here, but it seems our academy is being treated very poorly. His gaze looked in another direction nearby. He saw Heidel staring at his notebook, looking disinterested. Lewin understood the professor had no intention of intervening. The grand festival was a competition between students, and now his position was simply an instructor. He bowed his head slightly, his eyebrows furrowed. Currently, the authority and responsibility for the whole team rested in his hands as the academy's representative. Theta walked toward Hankus, leaning on the back of the seat. Hey Hankus, where is your representative Garyhill? At least he was an interesting person. But Hankus remained silent, not answering. Suddenly, a sound rang out that made Theta turn his head. Mikkel is probably bedridden, praying for his broken ribs to heal right now. He saw Lewin standing straight, full of confidence, looking directly into Theta's eyes. Hankus said hesitantly, that is the Academy's representative. Theta was suspicious. Representative? Seriously, this is the first time I've seen him. Having said that, he turned and walked toward Lewin. The sound of footsteps felt like drums beating in everyone's hearts. No one dared to breathe heavily. Sita stood facing Lewin and introduced himself. I am the representative of Yoda, Sita Mankiri. What's your name? Unfazed, he replied composedly, Lewin Ardle. His voice dropped an octave, and I think that's enough of an introduction for our first meeting. If you're done causing trouble, get out of our cabin. Theta's voice sharpened. What? He curled the corner of his lip, but of course, you'll apologize for calling us a stupid academy before you leave. And with a polite attitude, that's what I mean. Lewin repeated himself once more, shouldn't you apologize for calling us a bunch of stupid academy students before you go? And I mean a sincere apology. The veins on Theta's forehead bulged, his voice turning ice cold. What did you say? He closed the distance, looming over Lewin. Did you just tell me to apologize? Theta then turned back and barked furiously. Hey Hankus, haven't you told him who I am yet? Hankus's entire body began to tremble violently. Theta grew even more incensed at that. Can't even handle a simple task like that? Let me give you a lesson you'll never forget. Seeing his display, Lewin understood, so that's how it is. He noted the fear on everyone's faces. This was why the participants of the Grand Festival were terrified when they saw the students from Yoda Academy. Lewin watched with a steady gaze. It was because they were being bullied by Theta Maniri. He felt the atmosphere of fear permeating the entire cabin. They were intentionally doing this to break everyone's spirit before the match. Lewin was so angry he clenched his fists tight. So the Grand Festival had already begun right at this moment. Suddenly, he smirked provocatively. So, do you want to test your strength? Theta reacted as if he had heard a joke. Has this bastard actually lost his mind? With that, he prepared to throw a punch, not forgetting to threaten. You think I'm afraid? When you get hit, don't go. Before the blow could land, someone barked loudly, Theta, stop your hand. Theta pulled back his strike and retracted his hand, his voice becoming hesitant. Professor. The man spoke sternly, can't you just sit still? What are you doing right before a match, looking to hold a grudge already? He looked at Heidel and apologized sincerely. My students are quite rude. On their behalf, I truly apologize, Professor. Heidel gave a slight nod in response. Then he shoved Theta forcefully, barking, Theta, get back to your seat. He remained defiant, but Professor. Theta turned back and cast a hostile glare. You wait. Lewin watched the retreating figure and fell into deep thought. As he expected, things weren't going to be easy from the start. In another cabin, a furious voice rang out, Professor, why did you stop us? Theta couldn't understand it. He was the one who had suggested this method. So why? Professor T bowed his head and sighed, asking in return, you didn't see it. He was stunned. Sir, what do you mean? Theta startled and uttered a yes when he heard his teacher's question. Didn't you see him smiling? He recalled the scene he had witnessed earlier. That Professor Heidel from XN Academy, he was smiling while watching you as if he were waiting for you to make a move. Theta spoke his thoughts tentatively. It's just confidence, isn't it? His teacher exhaled, unsure. I'm not quite sure myself. He recalled the aura emanating from Lewin. I think that Lewin kid has something we don't know about yet. He's not like that Mikkel Garyhill who fought you last time. Hearing that tone, Theta knew things were no longer as simple as he had thought. The train continued to move. After the Yoda group left, the atmosphere in the cabin changed in a strange way. Everyone crowded around Lewin to discuss. Hey, what's the first match? The first match is a group battle without a representative, so you won't be in it. Liuan, I don't know if we can do this. Hankus spoke up with determination. Of course we can, we can't lose. Someone else shouted in agreement with great spirit, right, we can't lose to those bastards. Liuan watched everyone with satisfaction. Just a moment ago they were full of ego and jealousy, yet now they were this united. People asked him out of concern, are you okay? Liuan, why did you make it so tense? Those guys have known how to fight since the day they were born. Yeah, he's right, if a real fight broke out. Liuan's words made the whole group freeze. Don't you find it frustrating? He emphasized every word. They look down on you, they openly look down on our academy's representative. As your representative, if I just sit still, what would that make us? Liuan's voice rang out again in the cabin. They would definitely enjoy it more and look down on us even more. Furthermore, someone hesitated, well, that's true, but he cut them off. If we do nothing, we really are the stupid academy they say we are. Is that what you want? The whole group hung their heads when they heard Liuan's question. Do you want to be looked down on forever? Suddenly he raised his voice. It's precisely because you backed down that they've looked down on us for the past 6 years. Liuan continued, so what do you want to do now? This is no time to let ego destroy our unity. Someone pushed Hankus forward. We were thinking of letting Hankus be the goalie in the kickball match. What do you think? He scratched his head in embarrassment. Me, the goalie. Liuan was somewhat satisfied. It seemed Mikkel's tail was finally participating. It should stay this way until the competition ends. An announcement suddenly rang out on the train. Next stop, Antonucci, followed by someone urging, we've arrived, everyone please take your luggage down. Antonucci was a small state belonging to the Zaynak Royal League. It was also the only state recognized as a neutral state of the empire. Therefore, upon stepping foot here, even thousand-year enemies had to temporarily set aside their hatred. If blood was shed within Antonucci territory, the Doinap Empire, as the hegemon of the continent, would step in to judge the matter. Because of this, large-scale international competitions were held in Antonucci, such as the Grand Festival of the Mages Guild and the Grand Sword Treasure of the Swordsmen's Guild. The male students stared in bewilderment at the crowd before them and chatted, so this place isn't the Zaynak Empire? Someone snapped at them, stupid. It's not the Empire, this is just a royal league under the Empire's administration. Someone pouted, what's the difference? Jason looked around, this place looks like a different world. Hey Liuan, our Daemon district was already cool, but this place. Liuan's eyelids drooped slightly, so this was Antonucci. He watched two men chatting happily, truly worthy of being the kingdom's capital. Then he looked over at two girls laughing delightedly. Everything exuded an ancient charm and everyone seemed so relaxed. Liuan told himself, coming here makes me realize how small our place really was. Suddenly a voice rang out, we're going to the lodging now, everyone please get in the carriages. After that, everyone boarded the horse-drawn carriages one by one. The carriages followed each other down the road. Heidel, sitting opposite Liuan and Jason, spoke up to remind them, I'm saying this just in case, don't go near the other academies even by accident. He glanced up at Liuan, causing trouble at this time won't do any good. He became awkward, sir, why did you say that while looking at me? Suddenly Strang looked in another direction and cried out, Ho, look over there. Liuan looked at him suspiciously and asked, Huh, what is it? Strang raised his eyebrows. He continued, I just caught an extremely interesting scent. Liuan's eyes widened in surprise. What scent? Suddenly it leaped down from above and stood on Liuan's leg, opening its mouth. It seemed Strang sensed it and said, Draka's ruins are here. Scene shifts to the next day at the XN Academy's guest house. Jason watched Liuan quickly putting on his coat and asked sleepily, Huh, Liuan, are you going on a date? He didn't answer but dashed away like the wind. The system screen lit up before Liuan. While running, he asked Strang, Are you sure? It nodded and replied, Of course, you'll see it appear on the minimap in a bit. Even I can see it. When they arrived at a place with a crafting workshop sign, a memory vibrated and Strang cried out, There it is. Liuan slowly opened the door and stepped inside. He looked at the scene inside and remarked, I thought a black dragon's items would be in a very special place. This place looks quite ordinary. Liuan brought a hand to his chin in thought, shouldn't it be somewhere like the black market or some rich guy's basement? Strang put hands on his hips and laughed. Draka's ruins have no effect on ordinary mages. To them, it's just trash. When he used the damage immunity ring, his eyes suddenly widened. Immediately after, a brilliant light flared up. That light struck toward the man, leaving him astonished. A ring hovered within that light. System info, the player's innate treasure is a relic and also Draka's first failure. The damage immunity capability will help resist physical impacts on the player's body, increasing the ability to nullify physical damage. Lewin asked suspiciously, "A failure?" Strang laughed and explained, "This one is a bit special." He explained in detail, "It doesn't just resist attacks, it resists all physical contact. Even a hug from a lover wouldn't be allowed." Strang gave a forced laugh. "When you need it, it's not there. When you have it, you don't need it. That's why it's called a failure." Knowing he couldn't refuse, the boy could only nod. Looking at the content on the system screen, plus 200 strength points when equipped, Lewin nodded. "An extra 200 strength points, I want to wear it for that alone." Then he tried putting the ring on his middle finger. Lewin looked at his hand with great satisfaction. "Good, fits like a glove, as if it were made specifically for me." He said to the seller, "How much for this ring, sir?" He burst into laughter and gestured, "Just take it. It's been here forever and I don't even know how to maintain it." Left with no choice, Lewin offered, "Then let me buy something else." He laughed again and replied, "Be my guest." He walked along the aisles looking left and right. The player's eye really is convenient. Seeing the rarity of the books appearing before him, Lewin sighed. It even identifies the value of objects. Suddenly his gaze stopped as he looked in one direction. A brilliant golden light emitted from a book with the info, "High rarity, quantum mechanics of magic and swordsmanship." Lewin was startled. This. As he reached out to touch the book, someone suddenly appeared and blocked Lewin's hand. He looked at the white-haired girl before him in shock. This was the info that appeared above the girl's head. Irene Prouse, S-rank mage, very high potential. Lewin recognized her, Irene Prouse, from the Seiki Women's University. The king of mages, the supreme mage Thuron Artemis, had personally chosen her as one of the 11 successor mages. Lewin's expression turned grave. He had heard she was a genius on the verge of reaching S-rank. He looked at Irene and recalled the info from just now, but the truth is she's already S-rank. It seemed rumors had understated her abilities. She growled, "Let go." Lewin didn't back down. "I got here first." Irene's hand still pressed down on his. "Based on your uniform, you must be from X-Nit Academy. I am Irene Prouse from the Seiki Women's University. You've already found what you needed and are just looking for more, right? I came here specifically for this book." She suggested, "If it's nothing major, could you let me have it?" Lewin frowned, thinking to himself, "So she heard me talking. Is she buying this book for the grand festival?" He asked, "What do you need this book for? Not many people would want a book like this." Irene's voice became hesitant. "Well, She withdrew her hand, turning her slightly flushed face away. "It's for an assignment, I can't say, that's all you need to know." Lewin speculated that it probably wasn't a school assignment. Could it be related to the Infection King? He suddenly spoke up, "Fine, you take it. It's important to you, just take it." Being granted the book without any further argument left Irene flustered. Thanks." Lewin resumed his search. "So what should I buy now?" Irene watched his retreating back, a look of confusion momentarily crossing her face. When they returned to their lodging after hearing Lewin recount everything, questions followed one after another. "You met Irene Prouse? What did you two talk about? Is she as beautiful as they say?" Jason and Hankas's eyes sparkled with excitement as they asked, "Where did you meet? How did you meet her?" Lewin was speechless. "Can you just ask one question at a time?" Jason looked up sadly, so jealous. "My dream is to touch Irene's hand just once." Hankus took the chance to show off. "Truly mediocre. I met Irene at the grand festival. I even sat next to her while." Jason irritably interrupted, "Shut up, that doesn't count as talking." Lewin had to endure the two of them shouting like children. "What? Look at yourself, you couldn't even stand near her, let alone." As if suddenly remembering something, Hankus spoke up, "Listen, she's strong but she's always ranked second. I heard she loses to the top-ranked Doom Pram every year to the point of death." Jason jumped up and roared, "Bullshit, how dare you say that about my Irene?" Hankus sighed. "Since when is she your Irene? It's not bullshit, she's rank 1 at the Zaynek Military Training Academy. In other words, on this continent she is the most recognized person among her peers." He added, "Not to mention she is also a wielder of the light blade." Lewin was surprised to hear that. Sword. He recalled that book, so that was why Irene needed it. She needed it to defeat Doom Pram. As far as Lewin knew, being a swordsman wasn't exactly great. Compared to other types of weapons, a magic sword didn't provide much power, and mastering swordsmanship was no easy feat. Hankus added, "But this Doom Pram guy is different. His light blade is an S-rank treasure, and as far as skill goes, he's at least on par with a regular knight. Jason gave a long sigh, mastering swordsmanship, proficient in magic, plus an S-rank treasure. He's a total outlier. Not to mention he's rich, has a powerful father, is handsome, and girls are crazy for him. Hearing him lament, so someone like that actually exists, Lewin just remained silent. He thought of Irene, someone who was a 5th circle mage at only 16, and that swordsman who always took the top spot. Lewin frowned in silence. Would he stand a chance when facing these geniuses? He recalled the encounter with Theta. Surely no one would pay attention to someone like him. But Lewin closed his eyes and recalled Tyrion Ignit's words. "You are a candidate for the championship?" "That's no exaggeration," he told himself. "I want to see how it goes." Suddenly someone rushed in from outside saying, "Your lineup for the opening ceremony is out." Hearing that, Lewin's eyes flashed with determination. Good. Then he stood up and walked toward the door. Lewin walked straight toward the light shining in from outside. The grand festival. His coat fluttered in the wind like an assertion that it had only just begun. Immediately after, he thought to himself, finally, the debut lineup has been announced. Lewin's face was very serious as he looked up and waited. Our opponent is. Looking at the tournament bracket for a moment, he was quite surprised and thought, monkey business. A match with that stupid academy. Suddenly a voice came from behind. Well, that makes it too easy. It turned out to be Theta. He walked up arrogantly and challenged him. Fighting you lot gives us even more time to play around. Immediately he turned and thought, Yoto Academy students. Lewin looked at them without fear but thought to himself that fighting these guys would be the most tiring. He observed the whole group and considered, they were famous for playing dirty, not to mention. The guys behind him were quite afraid and whispered when they saw them. Damn it, why is it them? Yeah, they look scary. Hearing that, he thought, many at school have been traumatized because of them. Theta mocked them arrogantly. You guys are so weak you can't even get us excited. So boring as a dead fly. His subordinates laughed uproariously. Ha ha ha. Looking at the crowd whispering around them, he spoke with a challenging tone. I didn't expect to fight a stupid academy. It's like winning the lottery. Hey, aren't you afraid they'll hear you? Who cares? What can they do to me? They can't do shit. Lewin gave a sinister smile and thought, fine, let me take this chance to show you. Immediately after, he clenched his fist with pride and thought, we're not like we used to be. Then he spoke up grandly, I've been waiting for you too. He immediately stepped toward them and provoked, quite a few people attending the grand festival here, aren't there? Hearing that, he became furious and asked, what do you want? He stepped closer and said softly, I want to make a brief introduction. Then he aggressively shouted his introduction, nice to meet everyone. I'm Lewin Ardle, the representative of that stupid academy you all keep talking about. Lewin continued, I'm not going to say much, just have one small request. His expression turned sinister and terrifying as he added, don't ever call us a stupid academy again. It's unpleasant to hear. Hearing this, Theta was so furious he gritted his teeth and shouted, HMPH. He bared his teeth in a terrifying way and threatened, I'm sick of being at the bottom of the rankings from now on. Lewin looked straight at them and declared, catching them off guard, I want to be the one at the top. The others reacted violently and cursed, if we don't call you the stupid academy, what should we call you? Quit talking nonsense and stop acting so high and mighty. Hearing this, Theta felt annoyed and said, do you think this place is some small town competition? At the top, that sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Who do you think you are? Hearing that, he thought of the old man with white hair and muttered to himself, I am. Lewin's face was extremely confident as he clearly played his trump card. Deep down, he had made a resolution. He would never back down again. The scene shifted to that white building where they were whispering and gossiping intensely. Who is that guy? Lewin Ardle. The whole group was headache-stricken as they discussed. I looked into it. I heard he used to be the worst student. Can the worst student even be an academy representative? One of them replied, rather annoyed, I'm not sure, but I heard that at the beginning of last semester, he suddenly did a 180-degree turn with sky-high grades. Theta heard this and asked, confused, a 180-degree turn? Hearing that, the other continued, yeah, maybe that's why he's so confident. In his head, he recalled the old man's words, that kid, there's something about him we don't know yet. Immediately after, he sighed and said, maybe I'm just overthinking it. He stood up, stretched his limbs, and said, those arrogant guys, let me teach them a lesson. His face was full of confidence and pride as he said, in the traditional way of our school. The scene shifted to the dorm area of the X-Nit Academy. Here, Lewin's group gathered to discuss their plan. Tomorrow is the Mana grenade throwing event. The rules are group battles, and except for the Academy representative, all team members are allowed to participate. He then analyzed the tactics for his teammates. The challenge requires participants to throw mana grenades at a Midran golem. The team that takes it down faster wins. At this moment, a team member turned and asked, "Without you tomorrow, I wonder if we'll be okay." Lewin stood up and announced to everyone, "It's true that our individual abilities aren't as good as Yoda's." But with his intense belief, he encouraged the whole group, "But I believe you guys will win." Hearing that, his teammates were fearful and asked in confusion, "Win how?" Seeing this, Lewin stood up and told everyone, "This is a team battle. If you all coordinate, you will definitely win." Then he rolled out the plan, "Let's start by splitting into small groups." Hearing that, Hankus was surprised and exclaimed, "Small groups." In his head, Lewin had come up with a detailed plan for the small groups and told everyone, Group 1 will heat the grenades, Group 2 is responsible for transport, Group 3 attacks the golems, and Group 4 hinders the opponents by healing their golem." Hearing this, they all started whispering excitedly, "If that's the case, it'll take a long time to take down the golem." Right, on the Yoda side, 30 people attack at once if we have fewer people, not to mention they aren't pushovers. At this moment, he looked at his teammates with a sincere gaze. Then he raised his voice and shouted, "What's wrong with you guys?" Hearing that, Hankus stared blankly and gasped, "Huh." Lewin's face was extremely serious as he declared clearly, "Remember what I said in front of them? I said we would be the ones at the top. I was serious." Right after that, he slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "Whether I participate or not, I will help you with all my might." He stood before everyone and persuaded them, "When Yoda lands one blow, we land 2, 3 blows. Their members have excellent abilities, which is why they can do it the traditional way. But if we do that, it'll take a lot of time." Seeing this, Jason, looking extremely determined, declared, "All right, I believe you." Lewin, Ken, C letter 1EDD next to him also agreed, "Me too." Right after, the others were also fired up and declared, "Us too, we believe you." Immediately, Lewin looked at them and assigned tasks. "All right, Hankus will be the commander, Zola Min. Mora Aik Freya. You guys will heat the grenades." Then he turned to the others and continued ordering, "After the grenades are ignited, Westgate will carry out transport." He stared at the plan and reflected on how he had split the groups based on everyone's abilities, which he could only do thanks to his passive skill. Right then, he used his special eye technique, Player's Eye. He looked at his teammates to examine the opponents. With the ability to see through their abilities, he could minimize disadvantages and focus more on everyone's advantages. Everyone was now full of faith and chatting excitedly. "This time it'll be okay, right? Yeah, we might actually win." Seeing everyone so excited, he thought to himself that once in the right group, everyone would gradually gain more faith. Everyone was happily chatting, "I'm not good at throwing, but I can heat it for 5 seconds. "What do you mean not good? Am I good at throwing?" Lewin saw this and was extremely satisfied, thinking to himself, "Lucky." Watching everyone laugh and chat happily, Lewin felt better and thought, everyone is starting to be more confident. Their faith has been solidified. Suddenly, someone rushed in and pushed the door open. His face was covered in wounds as he collapsed. Seeing this, everyone in the room panicked and shouted, "Fun Lewum," his mouth trembling as he uttered, "Lewin." Seeing him like that, he was extremely worried and frantically ran over to check on him. "What happened to your face? Are you okay?" He mustered all his strength, stuttering, "The Yoda. What about Yoda?" After a long while, Fun Lewum finally managed to speak, leaving Lewin very surprised. Their representative called his cohorts and they dragged me away. The scene shifted to the other team's room. Theta saw him enter and exclaimed, "Oh wow." Seeing him, he looked at him with disdain and said, "See, I told you he'd come. So what are you planning to do? You think you can do anything to us?" His face was extremely serious, aiming a killer gaze at him as he said, "Bring Sita Mankiri out here right now." In that room, Lewin raised his voice and shouted for that guy, "Sita Mankiri, get out here now." Seeing that, Theta laughed contemptuously and cursed, "Damn it, is this guy crazy?" Then he stood up, moved in front of the guy and gritted his teeth. "What makes you think you can act all high and mighty all the time, huh?" At this moment, Lewin aimed a murderous glare at him, placed his hand on the guy's shoulder and growled, What makes me think what? Immediately after, he applied force with his hand onto the guy. Instantly, he was forced down onto his knees by Liuan. Theta's face was extremely panicked watching this scene, thinking to himself, what is this strength? He immediately stood up with a furious expression, clenching his fists and shouting, "You bastard." Liuan saw this and very quickly dodged his punch. And very quickly, with just one move, he twisted his arm, causing Theta to yelp in pain. His face was extremely dangerous and threatening to the others. "I'm warning you, if you dare to touch our people one more time, this won't be the end of it." Theta was now severely injured by him, falling to the ground, screaming in pain, "Ugh!" His underlings saw this and panicked, running over to check on him. "What happened? Theta, are you okay?" His face was full of pain. He clutched his shoulder and screamed pitifully. Liuan stood before him, threateningly saying, "So, want to make a bet with me?" Back at their own territory, Liuan told his brothers and they were extremely panicked and surprised, shouting, "A forehead flick." The whole group was shocked, not believing their ears. "If we beat the Joder Academy, Sita Mankiri will get a forehead flick from you. Don't tell me it's the same kind of flick as Mickles, though." Right then, he announced another piece of good news, not only that, he has to apologize to us in front of everyone. Hearing this, everyone was happy and surprised, shouting in unison, "Wow, we definitely have to win this time, what great motivation. Haha, our only job now is to win." Right now, someone suddenly ran in and announced that it was time to go to the Wintan Arena. Everyone should get ready. Immediately after, the group was present at the Grand Festival, the festival for mages and the entire continent. And in history, the mages present here. Everyone here looked very confident, all becoming important factors in changing the fate of the entire continent. The audience was extremely enthusiastic, cheering with all their might, "Xnit Academy go." Liuan's face was very confident and satisfied as he thought to himself, "I never expected to be a part of this place, a place that creates legends in history." Right after that, the referee shouted to announce to everyone, "The opening ceremony has ended, please return to your seats." Immediately, the whole group returned to their seats. Suddenly, he met someone. It turned out to be Theta. His face was extremely angry, gritting his teeth as he said, "Prepare yourself, this time I won't be careless anymore." Right after, the guy walked away furiously. Watching him, Liuan didn't bother paying attention, thinking, "The opponent I'm aiming for right now isn't you, Sita Mankiri." Suddenly, something caught his attention. It turned out he had noticed the guy over there. That person was Doom Pram. Looking at his face made him think, "You won the Magic Festival and are also the most outstanding person from the Danak Military Training School." He looked at him with great determination. "If I go deep into the final rounds, I'll definitely have to face him." Suddenly, someone's voice called out, "You're probably the type who specializes in causing trouble, right?" Immediately, Liuan turned around and realized it was Irene Prouse. Then she turned to him and asked, "Yesterday you were causing a commotion everywhere." She continued to ask, leaving Liuan surprised and confused, and even went to cause trouble at the Joder Academy. He was extremely surprised and asked back, "How did you know?" She walked away and answered, "This place is small, I'm sure everyone here already knows." Hearing this, he felt very awkward and replied, "Ah, is that so? I didn't cause any trouble, it was just a little heart-to-heart." Right after, she turned around and told him, "Anyway, since you gave me the book last time, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't make yourself stand out too much." Then he replied, leaving her completely stunned, "Like you, right? You're also hiding your talents, aren't you?" Fast as the wind, Liuan ran off and bid her farewell. "See ya, I have to go now, we have to participate in the first event." Seeing this, she was very surprised and astonished, standing there stunned. Immediately after, the competition began. In a few minutes, the Mana grenade throwing segment will begin. The first two teams are Xnit Academy and Joder Academy. At this moment, he rallied the spirits of all team members, ready yet. Everyone encouraged and boosted each other's spirits. "Let's show everyone our strength, show them we are no longer a stupid academy." Immediately, the whole team marched in heroically. The first event, the Mana grenade throwing segment, officially began. Everyone was confused and the audience turned to ask each other, "What's this? What are they doing?" Seeing the formation his group arranged made everyone wonder. Because until now, winning team competitions was always based on individual abilities. Arranging formations like knights was a strange thing to everyone. Even the mage groups outside were very surprised when seeing that. They split into two groups, heating and throwing. "Ah, never mind, Yoda will definitely win anyway." As for him, he was still very calm, ignoring everyone's whispers. "Those guys are just acting like they're the ones on top. Stupid academy, truly stupid. That's why they're at the bottom. They probably don't know there are many things beyond human comprehension. Even Irene's group held their breath and waited. As for her, she was no different, very surprised, uttering, "How is that possible?" Right after, his team shot off an arm of that stone giant to everyone's amazement. Look at the X-Knit team's golem, it dropped an arm. Seeing that, he immediately directed the whole group to charge in. Everyone, keep trying. Right after, he shouted commands to everyone. Ken Ko, the heating speed is good. Mora Ayake, you two help transport. Jason, aim for the right arm. The members immediately received the order and followed through. Instantly, the group destroyed the right arm. At this moment, Theta was so furious he gritted his teeth. Seeing the situation, he was boiling with rage and cursed. What the hell are you idiots doing? Why are you losing to the stupid academy? Right after, this guy pulled out his remote control and yelled, "These bastards are strange, they're healing the golem so it's not getting any weaker at all." Seeing that, he was infuriated and couldn't do anything but curse, "Damn it, Luan Ao." As for Irene, she was extremely impressed and exclaimed, "Truly impressive." Watching the people in Luan's group fighting so hard also made her reflect. The reason X-Knit Academy overcame Yoda's individual ability advantage was that they used tactics. She was extremely impressed with him, but one must accurately grasp everyone's abilities for this tactic to be effective. Then she recalled that moment when he found the book she needed in just a split second. Watching his members carry out the plan so smoothly left her impressed. He could even divide groups for members based on each person's abilities. Then her gaze turned toward him as she wondered, who exactly is this person? Why have I never seen him at the magic festivals before? At this moment, he was creating an enormous energy sphere in his hand. Then Jason threw the ball with all his might. "Gotcha, you devil." Very quickly, that power caused the stone giant to shatter into pieces. Witnessing this sight made Theta turn pale, standing frozen in place. He was furious and let out a cold snort. Right after that, the giant stone creature collapsed to the ground. Seeing that, the whole group was overjoyed and cheered, "Woohoo, we did it, we won." Right after, the group rushed in. At the very first event of the Grand Festival, in a competition that everyone thought Yoda would win, the whole group happily ran back to hug Luan to celebrate. Yet, the victory belonged to the stupid academy. The group, after winning, was very happy and said to each other, "So the stupid academy isn't at the bottom anymore. Oda is at the bottom now. In that case, what should we call them? Oyo tact? Sounds cringe as hell." Right after, the referee announced the next event. The Capture the Flag segment between Academy representatives is about to begin. In this event, Luan would take the field. His whole group cheered enthusiastically, making him even more confident. "Luan, do your best, beat the crap out of them." At this moment, the referee announced the next match. The first match is between Representative Luan Ardle of X-Knit Magic Academy and Sita Mankiri of Yoda Royal Magic Academy. As a reminder, he moved closer to Theta, who was furious. Chang saw his tense expression and mocked, "Why do you look so tense, Luan?" But he seemed not to care and just muttered to himself, "We're currently in the top 20 out of 32 schools, right? That's just perfect." Hearing this, Chang was very confused and blankly asked, "Why is it just perfect?" His attention shifted to the audience's surprise and amazement as he analyzed, "Through the last match, everyone is starting to focus their attention on us, but that's still not enough to remove the label that's been there for so many years." Then he said with great determination that they must win spectacularly. Luan looked straight at Theta, his voice heroic. "Only a spectacular victory against Yoda will make everyone look at us in a different light." Hearing that, Chang finally understood and exclaimed, "Oh, I see." Then his gaze turned upward, and looking at that magic kiln, he was determined, "We also need to prove ourselves to the Supreme Mage." The scene shifted to that dark room where the Supreme Mages were sitting around, observing the match from within the sphere. Inside the sphere, images of the two people standing parallel to each other appeared. The Supreme Mage Thuron watched them, looking deeply thoughtful. Then he turned to ask the person next to him, Luan Ardle, "This kid used to be a candidate among the 11 commoner children." Hearing that, the person next to him was quite surprised and said, "You still remember?" Hearing that, he looked down and explained, "I have a habit of remembering talented people. That boy was a natural-born genius to be able to teach himself how to use mana at such a young age." Immediately after, his face began to wrinkle, showing deep disappointment. "That's why I was so devastated to learn he suffered from a mana disorder." Hearing this, X-Nai responded with great surprise, disappointed, "Weren't you the one who treated that boy as if he were an incompetent, useless nobody?" Thuron remained pensive and silent. He then shared his thoughts with everyone there. but I never expected you to choose a student like that as the academy representative. I don't think you did it because you're preparing something interesting like before. Those two boys managed to break their curses after several years. Hearing that, Ignit remained silent for a long time. He then looked straight at Lewin and said with total confidence, "See for yourself and you will have your answer." At that moment, Strang turned and asked him, "What do you plan to do now? Whether you want to bind or freeze him, you have to get close, or are you planning to summon a guardian?" He immediately denied it. No, guardians aren't exactly known for their intelligence. Hearing that, it asked back in confusion, "Then how are you going to fight this match?" He stretched his limbs and replied, with a face full of spirit and confidence, "I'll just fight him head-on." The referee was about to signal the match, and as the word "begin" rang out, he immediately lunged forward at full speed, charging straight toward Theta. Seeing this, he didn't back down and immediately unleashed his power, shouting, "You'll pay for what you did to me the other day." Immediately after, he released his power to summon a guardian to fight against him. Seeing the giant guardian closing in on Lewin, he didn't panic at all, instantly using the time refraction technique. Very quickly, he skillfully and easily dodged the guardian's strike, and continued to charge straight ahead. In an instant, he was already right behind Theta. Seeing this, he moved to strike back in a rage, gritting his teeth and cursing, "Damn it." But he wasn't afraid at all, calmly using his bare hands to block the strike. With a smug look on his face, he taunted him, "Just as I thought." On the other side, seeing that his hand wouldn't move, he cursed furiously, "Are you going to let go or what?" He then spoke calmly to him, leaving Theta bewildered as he exclaimed, "What? I don't think you should be saying that right now." It turned out the guardian he created was crashing toward the other guy with a roar. HMPH. Seeing this, Theta turned pale and shrieked, "Stop, you stupid guardian." The guardian drew closer to him, terrifying Theta. He was furious but helpless, thinking, "I can't move." With a defiant look, he provoked him, "Try running away then." Suddenly, he seemed to realize something. He recalled the image of that boy defeating him with a single blow and realized, so that feeling back then was real. It wasn't just because I was off guard. The spear tip was about to plunge into Theta's face and he gave up in helplessness. "I lost." He closed his eyes tight and waited for death, but nothing happened. This led him to open his eyes to check the situation, only to see that the boy was jumping out to block the guardian's strike. Witnessing this scene, Theta couldn't believe his eyes. He stood there frozen, thinking to himself, "Impossible." Watching him repeatedly punch the guardian with his bare hands, he couldn't help but admire him. He's using his bare hands to attack a steel guardian. The guardian was being pummeled mercilessly. Lewin had defeated the guardian, which greatly surprised him. Immediately after, he stepped toward him, making Theta very frightened. Theta looked at him with great emotion, stammering, "Did you just save me?" He feigned ignorance and replied coldly, "Save you? Why would I save someone who humiliated my friend?" He then approached him with a dangerous look and said slowly, "I want to finish you myself." He then reminded him, "Remember the bet." Lewin flexed his fingers and said softly, "Just one forehead flick." His flick was so powerful it sent him flying. He lay sprawled on the ground, staring blankly as he thought, "The sky looks so blue." The audience was equally surprised and exclaimed, "Oh my God." Witnessing this, his fellow students cheered in delight. The arena erupted. Everyone praised him incessantly. Incredible, what kind of magic was that? This match was over before it started. And so, Lewin caught the attention of another person. He glanced over at him and thought, "Tusk, here we go again." Looking at Thuron's face, he seemed to have lost his soul. Many thoughts raced through his mind. As someone in a demigod position, the only 8th circle mage, the one known as the Supreme Mage, yet I've never seen magic like this. He looked on in disbelief. He stared at him and wondered, "Who exactly are you?" Seeing him laughing and joking, he was very annoyed, with the name Lewin echoing in his mind. Thuron was furious, gnashing his teeth and looking as if he were ready to devour him. "Tyrion Ignit, tell me everything you know about Lewin Ardell." He suddenly spoke up in a mysterious tone. He remained silent, pondering with a hint of helplessness. "That boy is a student who always does his duty, someone everyone thought would give up, but in the end, he didn't." He leaned back in his chair and began to recount what he knew about him. Someone who knows how to turn a weakness into a strength and is a mage who acts more like a mage than anyone else. This is what I know about Lewin. After listening, his lips tightened, seemingly in anger. He suddenly stood up, speaking with a mocking laugh. "Ho, are you trying to protect your student from my curiosity, Tyrion? What if I just call Lewin here and ask him directly?" he said arrogantly with a triumphant look. "If you intend to force the boy to speak," he said suggestively, piquing his curiosity. Then I'll have to stop you. Thuron almost couldn't believe it. He looked at Tyrion with annoyance. He let out a breath and gave a contemptuous smirk at Tyrion's words and actions. You're exercising a mage's right to secrecy, aren't you? Miley's oath. They stood staring at each other, ignoring the people on the other side. Fine then. But a little exchange shouldn't be a problem, hum. He looked at the sphere again, the corner of his mouth curling as if he had caught his prey. The one to reach the limit of magic must be me. Thuron stared at the sphere without blinking. He must find out what kind of magic that was. Lewin Ardell. Somewhere in the middle of the night. We only won one round. He placed a hand on his head and groaned. We should focus on resting now if we keep playing around like this. The other schools will catch up, so why are you so stressed? Chill out. A group of students was drinking and laughing loudly. Opposite them was Lewin, looking completely helpless. This is awesome. I always thought if I ever came to Altine I'd have to visit this place. Come on, Lewin, celebrate the victory. It's a festival after all. Jason walked up behind him. Lewin could only sigh in weariness. There's Altine coconut juice here, and Dragon Kiss too. Two delicious-looking drinks were laid out. Dragon Kiss, he was surprised to hear the name. Haha, you know I've always loved my homeland. He handed the bottle straight to him. So this is a local specialty of yours. You bet, but that's not why I ordered it. From somewhere, footsteps were approaching. Just one sip and it feels like you're kissing a dragon. The taste is top tier. Jason used every good word to market the drink. Come on, Lewin, stop making that face. Give it a try. One glass and you're there. I mean, one glass and you'll experience ultimate flavor. He chirped, inviting Lewin to try the strange drink. He looked at the bottle in his hand with concern. Behind them, a tall silhouette was standing right there. He looked up at the person behind him in surprise. That tall boy was Theta, who had lost to Lewin in the previous match. Theta Malkiri, the whole group exclaimed in surprise. I know your pride was hurt because you lost to Lewin, but you should just go. Don't ruin our fun. Jason frowned, glancing at him with annoyance. Theta Malkiri, he found it hard to believe. Why was he here looking for trouble? I came to apologize. Casting aside his ego, he narrowed his eyes and forced out an apology. Their faces became question marks, utterly surprised by what he said. I'm sorry for looking down on you all this time. He bowed his head slightly, trying to be as sincere as possible. After being defeated by Lewin in the arena, I realized something. He knit his brows and spoke gruffly. I shouldn't look down on others just because they are weaker than me. Words that once seemed impossible were being spoken. There are still many people in the world stronger than me, so to someone, I'm just a weakling too. The group was still in shock. I truly feel that what I did to you all this time was wrong. Wait, why all of a sudden? Jason looked at him in confusion, his face beaded with sweat. I know that even if I say these things, you won't forgive me easily, but I'm saying it just so you know. I'm truly sorry. He bowed low, showing as much sincerity as possible. Lewin looked at him, his face softening slightly, but he still said nothing. Awkward as heck, the other friends looked at each other and scratched their heads. Yeah, true. I'm sorry for ruining the mood. I'll be going now. After speaking his mind, he stood up straight, preparing to leave. Theta, a call rang out, making him turn his head in surprise. Are you apologizing because of the bet, or do you truly want to apologize? Lewin looked at him seriously. He half believed and half doubted his sudden apology. It's for real. He looked at him, his honest face saying it all. After hearing that, he breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Thanks for the manly apology. He stepped forward, reaching out his hand as a gesture of encouragement, making his eyes widen in surprise. Emotion surged within him, his eyes speaking volumes. He reached out to shake his hand. It was a truly indescribable handshake. This is delicious. What is it? They resumed what they were doing earlier. My friends had also accepted Theta's apology, and so we all gathered together. And so they sat together, shoulders linked, chugging bottles of Dragon Kiss into the late night, getting lost in the atmosphere. In that atmosphere, Lewin suddenly opened his eyes, his face showing panic. He was silent. Jason and the others stared at him and grinned widely. Lewin, you're awake. He sat up with one arm, using the other to rub his head. Yeah. The whole group sat around the bed watching him. Finally awake, huh? Remember anything from yesterday? Do you really like Dragon Kiss that much? Hankus's question made Jason and the other guy burst out laughing. Yesterday you were crying and saying, thank you guys for believing in me, at least for now. Whoa, school life is hard. Lewin was holding a bottle of alcohol and crying while Theta clapped in support. Meanwhile, the others were laughing until they cried. Recalling it, the whole group laughed even louder. I didn't expect the perfect Liuin to have this side to him, ha ha ha. From then on, Jason and everyone had something to tease him about. Liuin walked down the hallway irritably, muttering, "Those bastards started causing trouble the moment they woke up. Insane." He felt embarrassed recalling the image of Jason tempting him to try Dragon Kiss. What kind of drink makes people so sensitive? I have to stay away from it from now on. As he was strolling along, he suddenly heard someone calling his name. Liuin, this time he bumped into Theta. "Did you sleep well yesterday?" Theta ran up, laughing as he spoke. Last night they had apologized for fighting and promised to be brothers from now on. They hugged and burst into tears. He blushed and hurriedly ran away while Theta stood in the middle of the hallway shouting, "See you later, my friend." Liuin ran off quickly. Doesn't he feel any shame? His face was as red as a tomato. He dragged his tired body along. It was truly a case of out of the frying pan and into the fire. He bumped into Professor Heidel. "Trouble follows you wherever you go." The professor's words made Liuin flinch. "You know about that too, sir." But he didn't mention it and announced that someone wanted to see him. He wondered, "Who is it, sir?" They stood facing each other. He said the person was dangerous but appeared kind. This only made Liuin more curious. "Who is it?" He was completely shocked to learn that the person wanting to see him was the man known as the Supreme Mage, Thuron. Professor Heidel also had to warn him. "Be careful, Liuin, Thuron is a mysterious man." He continued seriously, "People who hide their true nature like him are very dangerous." Liuin listened intently. "That's all I can say," he continued while the boy fell into thought for a moment. "I'll keep that in mind, sir." Liuin seemed to soothe the professor's concern. "Good, then after the exam ends today, I'll let you know the time." After hearing Liuin's story, the students were extremely excited and a bit surprised. "Supreme Mage Thuron, the Supreme Mage is watching us," they all shouted. Some were excited, others were afraid. He spoke with a firm voice. "Well, that's all the more reason to win. I've already thought of a strategy. A strategy called defense if possible." Hearing that, everyone was confused. "What do you mean?" Liuin pointed at himself confidently. "I'll run to the goal." The next match was Bolt Ball. This was a match using bolts that have the ability to move. They would constantly fly everywhere. Each team had 9 members divided into offensive, defensive, and goalkeeper positions. The team that fired more bolts into the opponent's goal would win. The rules were simple, but the match required high tactical skill. You had to know when to use defensive magic and when to use control magic. You had to know how to catch the bolt and throw it into the opponent's goal. Normally, many things had to be considered, but with Liuin, the rules were just words. An opponent shouted in panic, "Watch out." He flew like the wind toward the opponent's goal. The match began. The other side shouted, "Ice Tree, Ice Spear," as they gathered ice element mana to attack Liuin. Someone gathered mana and released a massive flame called Fire Wall at Liuin. With one hand, he smashed the ice, with the other he punched through the fire. They used all kinds of magic, but it was all useless. In the stands, Theta even cheered for Liuin louder than the people from Ignite Academy. "Go Liuin, go Ignite." Everyone looked at him with disdain. What's wrong with him? Yesterday he was making such a fuss after losing. He must have lost his mind after Liuin handled him so badly. Probably. Hearing those words, he shouted angrily, "What did you say? What was that? Don't you know you have to fight before you can be brothers?" A student spoke up. "There was no fighting, it was just you getting hit, right?" Those words stung his ears. "What did you say, you punk?" The friend replied fearfully, "Nothing." Then people didn't dare speak in front of Theta anymore and switched to whispering behind his back. "Sheesh, what's wrong with these representatives?" The tall man stood with his hands in his pockets, thinking. "Liuin Ardal, after fighting you, I'm certain of one thing. You will be the mage of the next generation." Your image appeared quite cool in his eyes. Irene Prouse of the Women's University, then Dalian Malkin of the Frelia Holy School, and finally Doom Pram of the Jenk Military Training School. Theta had fought directly against the best at the Grand Festival, but Liuin was even stronger than them. Not only strong, but Liuin also had leadership skills and patience. Your image replayed in his mind. Thinking of this, he also couldn't believe that after all that, Liuin still accepted him as a friend. "Captain, it's almost our turn, aren't we having a strategy meeting?" "Yeah, let's go." And so Theta couldn't continue cheering for Liuin. Someone shouted with all his might, "Block Liuin Ardal." They were trying to stop Liuin with their lives, ice, fire, earth, wood. They pulled out whatever they could use. They all shouted back, "We're trying our best." Liyuan, with his physique, quickly dodged all of the opponent's attacks. He gave a triumphant smile. "Done yet, now it's my turn." They hurriedly erected a thick ice barrier out of fear. He uttered a HMPH and punched the ice into fragments. "Gah, it's ice shards." They all scrambled to escape, falling flat on the ground. "Watch out. Did you forget about us just because you have Liyuan?" While Liyuan was disrupting the enemy formation, Jason caught a bolt. He caught a bolt. Stop him! Even if they wanted to stop him now, the defensive line was already shattered. Not to mention Jason was a master at throwing. "Take this," he shouted, raising the score to 2-0. Outside they cheered wildly. "Well done, another point." Then all attention focused on Liyuan, as Jason and his teammates took advantage of the weakened defense to attack through that gap. He lunged forward at breakneck speed. They couldn't block Liyuan Ardal. Just like that, their defensive line was broken. The entire stands couldn't believe their eyes. They couldn't believe it. Down on the field, everyone was panting from exhaustion. "They're monsters. It's no use, we've lost." In a normal ball-tossing match, there would be 3 to 4 goals. But Ignite Academy had scored a record-breaking 11 goals, not letting the opponent score a single one. "Surrender, they've signaled surrender." The announcer's voice echoed throughout the stands. "The winner is Ignite Magic Academy." He and his teammates celebrated joyfully amidst the cheers ringing throughout the arena. "Our academy won decisively with an 11-goal difference. Looks like that guy wasn't bluffing. Yeah, maybe he really is the top student." The crowd started buzzing about Ignite Magic Academy. Back in the waiting room, everyone was celebrating the victory. "Whoa, we won again. At this rate, we might actually take first place, huh?" someone asked curiously. While enjoying the victory, he suddenly heard someone call his name. "Liyuan Ardal." It was Professor Heidel. He opened the door and acted as if he'd been standing there waiting since the afternoon. He walked in to meet Liyuan. "We have an appointment tonight at 7 o'clock. He placed a hand on his shoulder, which made him think of some kind of romance drama. Shifting to the crimson-red sky, the Yama was enjoying a glass of red wine. Hand holding the wine glass, his gaze looking into the distance. "Remember not to eat anything before coming." Liyuan, a majestic tower dominated by black and red hues, appeared. That very day, as scheduled, Liyuan walked leisurely down the hallway. "You've arrived, Liyuan." Tyrian Ignite suddenly stepped out, catching him off guard. He quickly realized the silver-haired man who had suddenly appeared was his teacher. "Hello, teacher?" Liyuan cleared his throat and greeted him quickly. Tyrian Ignite stood there, silently observing him for a long time, then smiled at him. "Let's go inside." The door opened, and Liyuan and Tyrian Ignite stepped out together. "Welcome," a steady, calm voice resonated. Liyuan stopped, his eyes widening in shock, and he followed the voice to look ahead. A person appeared before them. Chang reacted swiftly. "This guy's magic. Could he also be a dragon?" Liyuan's eyebrows furrowed. Liyuan tried to recall, and then a thought flashed, quickly making him realize that this was the supreme mage, nearly reaching the threshold of being half-human, half-dragon. That was Yamateron. A sumptuous meal had been prepared on the dining table. "You probably don't know that we've met before." Teron remained very calm. "Back then, I saw you from a distance." Meanwhile, Liyuan was a bit curious when hearing that "saw me." Teron spoke while eating. "It's been 5 years now. At that time, I was looking for the true essence." "You were once on that list?" Hearing this, Tyrian Ignite turned to look at Liyuan and nodded in confirmation. Liyuan was surprised. Before he could speak, he was cut off by Teron. "It seems everything is much different now. I'll get straight to the point." Liyuan looked up at him, focusing on what he was about to hear. "Can you tell me what happened during this past time?" He thought to himself, so in his eyes, I was a mistake. The passing thought made his face even more pensive, proof that even the supreme mage had made mistakes once. He wanted him to say it with his own mouth to prove that he himself wasn't wrong. He looked down, vaguely guessing his intention. "Please forgive me, sir, but at this moment I can only say one thing." Liyuan's raspy voice made him pause for a moment. He frowned defensively. Liyuan continued, "No matter how talented I am, my efforts won't be recognized." "Efforts?" Teron rested his chin on his hand, his eyes mocking as if he'd just heard an old joke. "Are you two related? Why do you always talk about efforts?" Tyrian Ignite seemed to smile kindly while looking at Liyuan. "That's also why I like this kid." Hearing that, he also smiled slightly while looking at him. "If so, what efforts have you made?" A reply came. "Recently, I've been focusing on martial arts." "You mean you overcame your mana disorder by training martial arts and thanks to that gained tremendous strength?" His tone grew higher and higher, cold and teasing, and even cast magic without needing chant time. You want me to believe this? Or are you simply using some kind of treasure? He said it so easily that it made him visualize power-boosting items, implying that he was actually as mediocre as others and nothing special. Even I have never heard of such a treasure. Tyrion Ignit hesitated. That's possible too, Teron said. All right, there will be many opportunities later. He asserted, I will continue to observe you. I don't know if your efforts will even bother my kids. Lewin didn't flinch. Please continue to observe me, sir. He stood up abruptly to Teron's surprise. Now I'm starting to get curious too. Lewin smiled. I wonder if the person the Supreme Mage chose has anything different compared to me. He was a bit surprised by those words. At the Grand Arena, the out-of-control cheers and crazy yelling of the commoners. The people here are very welcoming. A maid approached. Oh, are you afraid I'll eat your student alive, teacher? There's no such thing, it's not like that. The two veteran mages sat facing each other. Talented mages are always welcome. Teron smiled slightly and shrugged, just a bit curious, that's all. The maid quietly poured the tea. Tyrion Ignit's gaze swept over the opponent. Well, has your curiosity been satisfied yet? Teron was deeply profound. I don't know if you're hiding anything from me, but I'm sure you don't have any secrets, right? He closed his eyes, his lips curling into a hidden smile as he sipped the tea. Now I'm starting to get curious about something else. He repeated, curious about something else. You heard it too, right? That kid is subtly threatening me. Teron shrugged. Tyrion could only smile dismissively. Look at him, he's just a kid who hasn't even grown up. That brat isn't afraid at all, while plenty of mages tremble when standing before me. How interesting, he chuckled softly, a hint of anticipation in his voice. In the quiet space, Teron, with a calm expression, I hope the brat I've got my eye on will actually do something. Outside the cheering, the door burst open with the clattering footsteps of other mages in the hallway. Doom Prime walked in first like a pack leader. He frowned furiously. What's the point of cheering? To me it's just... Bam! The door burst open as someone rushed in, nearly falling. He whispered into Doom Prime's ear. The thing is, Doom Prime asked again, are you sure? I'm certain I saw it with my own eyes. The representative Lewin Ardle has arrived at the tower. Doom Prime shuddered, a fire of rage erupting within him. The Yama isn't testing me, but testing someone else. He shook with anger. He began to sift through the memories of the matches he had watched. I've watched his matches a few times. At this grand festival, he's caused a lot of commotion. There are many rumors that he's a tough opponent because his magic is special, but I don't care at all. No matter how high he climbs or how much he struggles, he's not even considered my rival. Doom Prime fell into contemplation. In his eyes, he was just a freak, simply put. Reaching a breaking point, he seemed to lose control of his very thoughts and his jealousy. Others noticed the abnormality and hurriedly observed him. What's wrong, Doom? What's the matter? The voices echoed with concern. They were worried and a bit wary. I cannot forgive you, Lewin Ardle. The only one who should be recognized by him is me. On the other side, the mysterious gate creaked open. Behind the gate was Lewin, the guy everyone was talking about. He stepped through the door and stood there looking at the black cloak in front of him. It's him. It's him, Doom Prime. He, with a slightly annoyed expression, was staring straight at him. What did you say to the Yama? He glared, baring his teeth fiercely in interrogation. You waited for me just to ask this. Didn't you think there'd be someone in this world that free to be so damn ridiculous? In the middle of the great hall, the man's shouting echoed, his eyes blazing with anger. Answer me. Contrary to his rage, Lewin replied indifferently. He didn't flinch before his fury. A calm voice rang out, why should I answer? The sentence, though soft, was like splashing 10 buckets of water in his face. Doom Prime frowned without hesitation, drew his sword as a threat, for no reason at all. The air in the hall seemed to thicken, his sword emitted a cold light. But I want to hear it. His voice resonated. Facing his anger, he remained calm, not wavering in the slightest. This guy really wants to start a fight. His face hardened, eyes flashing like bullets as he glanced at him. Challenging me? This isn't the arena, you know. He raised his fist as a provocation. The two sides confronted each other with two completely different surges of power. If you want it, bring it, he puffed up, eyes wide, provoking him. The moment the last sentence ended, the ground beneath their feet shook violently. A blinding flash of light exploded from in front, rushing to attack him like a cyclone. His reflexes couldn't respond in time before the danger was right before his eyes. Their energy sources spread everywhere around the Great Hall. He's truly strong, I can't spot any weaknesses. His initial arrogance had been extinguished before his power. Is he really planning to cause trouble here? This is outside the arena. He doubted reality as he saw him still trying to fight him. He silently drew his sword, preparing for the next move. The two stopped far away. A sudden voice screamed, making both of them jump. Irene Prouse, a girl with long white hair, walked over to them. Is today a reunion day? Everyone's here, she said, stepping closer to them. Reunion? It's just that I don't know if I should properly greet you two or not. Irene stood next to him, crossing her arms, and said helplessly, "Forget it, I'll pass." He remained silent, saying nothing. HMPH. Furious, he turned his back and walked away, ignoring the two people standing there looking at him. Is he always like that? He asked, looking at her curiously. Not really, except for days like today. Usually he rarely opens his mouth. What does that mean? Lewin still didn't understand what she said. Doom Prime gets agitated by things related to the Yama. The image of him kneeling in submission to the overbearing Yama surfaced in her story. More than anyone, he desperately wants to be recognized by him. Usually, it's rare for the Yama to call for others like he did today. She continued to explain, he probably thinks the Yama is paying attention to me. He stood there reflecting on her words. Suddenly, she turned to look at Lin and smiled, leaving him dazed and speechless. Did you really intend to fight him earlier? The girl asked curiously. No way, doing that would be no different than forfeiting the right to compete, he replied. He probably didn't intend to actually strike. He waved his hand to deny her previous opinion. He was probably just trying to scare me. So, were you afraid? Irene teased, asking a question that left him standing there, stunned in surprise. Doom Prime is nothing less than a solid wall. Normal attacks won't do anything to him. She continued, but he raised his hand and looked at it. I don't think I'll lose either. He clenched his fist, clearly showing his will and determination. No matter how solid the wall is, if you keep attacking, it will break. I'm strong too, right? He posed the question, making the girl unable to hold back a giggle. You really are a strange person, she replied to him. Regardless, be careful, Doom Prime won't show any mercy. Somewhere, footsteps walked quietly by. After today, he'll definitely have his eye on you. Elsewhere, his gaze glanced firmly ahead. Elsewhere, at the Ignite Academy rest area, the morning sunlight gently shone through each window. Disappointed, truly too disappointed, Jason lay there sighing heavily. Come on, everyone tried their best anyway. Facing his fatigue, Lewin still stood there, patting his shoulder to comfort and encourage him. Yeah, without Lewin, getting fourth place in the group battle is good enough. Good what? It's extraordinary, another friend spoke up. Losing the streak is a pity, but at least we've proven the Academy's capabilities. His expression was regretful, then he shrugged helplessly. Do you have any plans for the upcoming individual exam? While everyone was talking, a friend happily entered carrying 2 stuffed bags. Who wants vanilla Coke? Of course we have to win, he replied to the previous question while taking a soda can. Thanks. I have to keep the top spot from now until the last minute. He cracked open the can, his face full of determination looking at the delicious drink. Currently, I'm still tied for first in the individual rankings. Irene Prouse, Cherky, Dalian Malkin, Doom Prime. The names of talented people appeared. Me and the heavyweights competing for the championship. If nothing changes, the next match will be extremely important. This is a battle for survival. This is a battle for survival between 32 representatives on an artificial island. First place gets 32 points, last place gets 1 point. Players will receive points based on their performance, so there will be a big change between rankings. I know you'll do well, but don't you plan to prepare like everyone else? The other friend asked curiously. Prepare what? Lewin replied, confused. Yeah, the others are trying hard to find allies. Jason looked at him and said, Is that so? He replied hesitantly. In a survival battle, contestants have the right to ally to survive. Distinguishing friend from foe, knowing how to form a strong alliance is also considered an effective strategy. Others will have alliances, how can you defeat them all by yourself? They continued chatting excitedly. Or maybe try to team up with Theta? After all, the last ball toss match, the other friend continued while Lewin was lost in thought about his plan. The person he thought of first was her. The image of the long white-haired girl was in his mind, but he didn't know if she'd join. He was troubled about what to do, and even if she did, he'd still be short a person. Hey Lewin, let's team up. Theta suddenly pushed the door and walked in excitedly. Theta, he looked at him in surprise. Yeah right, there's still this guy. Lewin had a look like he just caught a big fish. He looked at him triumphantly. Don't betray your brothers halfway through. I should be the one saying that. The two of them rushed out the door and ran off urgently. Theta was very honest. He was a reliable person. He glanced at Theta, his eyes full of hope and trust. Hurry up, we're still missing one more person. With that, he ran ahead, leaving him behind. Theta yelled from behind, "Hey, who else is there besides me? Who? Or maybe try again? Forget it, we can't reach them anyway." Did she not accept anyone's invitation? Or does she not want to team up with anyone? In the middle of the crowded people, the two boys stood there, staring straight ahead. "Hey, don't tell me." Theta was startled when speaking of what was in front. A fiery red scarf with a 5-petaled flower in the center fluttered. "You want to team up with Irene Prouse, but she's a candidate for the championship? Are you too close?" He still couldn't believe it. "A little bit," he replied to his abrupt question. "Oh wow, how close? Nice, so I'll be on the same team as Irene Prouse?" He excitedly continued to probe. "Tone it down, I haven't even asked yet." He helplessly turned his head to tell him. "I heard anyone who comes here gets rejected. What if we get rejected too?" His face was flushed with worry and embarrassment, feeling a bit sick. "You're talking as if we're going to confess our love." "Stop talking nonsense," he replied awkwardly. He saw something to the side and glanced over. It turned out to be Irene, the girl with the signature white hair standing right there, smiling at him. "I've been waiting for you, Lewin." Suddenly, she smiled radiantly and spoke to him as if they were best friends from a past life. In a small room, they stood with heads bowed intently over a large wooden table spread with competition maps. After gazing for a long time, they began to discuss tactics to win. Lewin spoke up first. "So the largest team has 14 people." Irene replied, "Yeah, this team is led by Darian Malkin of the Frella Magic Academy. He's a genius, always in the top 5 championship candidates. His magic is mainly light and holy magic." Having identified this as a tough opponent, everyone's face looked very guarded. Theta's eyes closed tightly, brows slightly furrowed, one hand on his chin, one crossed, making him look even more insecure and anxious, muttering nonstop. Quantity isn't the problem, and naturally his team is the most formidable one. Feeling that what he said wasn't entirely accurate, he spoke up to cut off that train of thought, making the two unable to hide their surprise and quickly turn their heads. "There's someone even more formidable. Doom Prime?" Just 2 words were enough to make the room go silent. It seemed this was the dangerous opponent everyone had to be wary of. But for some reason, the two had forgotten that. He wasn't shaken, still keeping that serious expression. The content of the competition will change depending on everyone's abilities. In a blink, the day of the competition arrived. It was a clear, sunny day. Rays of light shone on the deck, making it sparkle brilliantly. It was unclear whether it was a sign of a good start or just a fragile glimmer of hope before the storm hit. The supervising teacher confirmed, "Have you all put on your armor?" Then, before the contestants intently listening, the teacher explained the rules once more. "Please note, when your armor's durability reaches its limit, you will be eliminated and automatically teleported out of the competition area." Please note, when your armor's durability reaches its limit, you will be eliminated and automatically teleported out of the competition area. Everyone took turns getting off the ship along the prepared path. Some had tense, anxious expressions visible in their heavy footsteps. Others had confident gazes, ready to face every challenge waiting on the mysterious island ahead. Just stepped off, Theta couldn't control himself and hugged his shivering body. "I'm already trembling." Meanwhile, Lewin didn't blink for a second, intently looking forward. He raised his hand to observe the flickering island covered by a barrier over there. He voiced, "Just need to stay there for 72 hours, right?" He, with a calm demeanor and cold eyes, nodded slightly in confirmation. "Yeah." Everyone around paid attention to Doom Prime, everyone's foreheads beaded with sweat. Guarded against his excessive power, the air on the island was now more suffocating than ever. As expected, Doom Prime was indeed participating alone. Even though that was in Lewin's calculations, their eyes still shone with wariness. Irene saw that and tilted her head slightly, her voice light but firm. "That's true, but don't underestimate him." Not only the two, but everyone understood that being alone doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes it's the sign of a beast waiting for the opportunity to strike a fatal blow. "Can't delay any longer," he suggested. "Let's go, we have to take a boat from here to the main island." The other two agreed. "Yeah, let's go." their group's boat was moving slowly on the turquoise water. Gradually it passed through a barrier. She touched it. "This is our safe zone," he replied. "That's right, it will shrink over time." Just arrived, the three ran like the wind. "Hurry up, we must quickly secure a good spot." On the island, trees grew lushly. Rays of light poked through the leaves, shining down on the thick forest canopy, creating a fragile halo in the quiet nature. Suddenly, a rumbling sound from someone's stomach echoed, destroying the peace. It turned out to be Theta. After the three settled in the trees like monkeys, his stomach protested violently again. He wondered, "Lewin, I don't mean to oppose you, but why didn't we take food at the entrance earlier?" His gaze was weary, 3 parts helpless and 7 parts annoyed. He could only smile dismissively. Standing beside him, she couldn't help but tease. "Weren't you the one who insisted on an ambush first? Huh, Lord Theta Malkiri." He looked embarrassed, sweat beads forming on his temples as he stammered. "Fine, whatever, we're in the same boat now anyway. How long are you going to keep acting like a stranger?" Suddenly, a massive noise erupted from behind, cutting their conversation short and making everyone whip their heads around to look. In the distance, a violent explosion rocked the middle of the forest. A blinding light flared up, forcing everyone to instinctively shield their eyes as the powerful shockwave made the entire area tremble. He looked bewildered. "A fight already? We just got here." Lewin stood with his arms crossed, looking down like a wild predator that had just spotted its prey, a clear look of excitement on his face. "Theta, it's our turn." Seeing the other man still confused by his words, he calmly reassured him, "I told you not to worry about food. Now you're going to eat until your stomach bursts." "Our prey is here," he said softly. Below them, a group of 5 was creeping around cautiously. They were scouting the area like weak prey, terrified of being attacked at any moment. One person in that group couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. "Can't we just wait a bit and get food later? I'm exhausted." The leader looked worn out as well but didn't give up, encouraging the others. "Hang in there, those spots are easier for finding food and water." Suddenly, an ice arrow materialized out of nowhere and shot straight forward. It struck an unlucky member directly, sending him tumbling backward as he let out a pained cry. "Ugh!" Meanwhile, the people around him stood there in a daze, not understanding what had happened. They finally realized the gravity of the situation and scrambled into defensive stances, screaming, "Ambush, it's an ambush." "Hello there, I've been waiting for you." Theta stood there with a sharp, cold grin, manifesting a magic orb in his hand. "These brats really kept me waiting." "Iron Spear," he bellowed, releasing a surge of power that sent a storm of ice arrows flying toward them. Beside him, Irene also clasped her hands together. Her face remained expressionless. Above her head, a massive globe of blue energy began to shine brilliantly. It was many times larger than Theta's previous attack, emitting blinding energy sparks and swirling violently. Seeing that sight left him stunned. "Is that 5th-tier ice magic blizzard?" A massive source of energy was unleashed with fierce power and an overwhelming scale, exploding outward like a luminous cyclone. Energy beams shot out like sharp ribbons, making it feel as if space itself was being torn apart. Beside that, the roaring sound it made proved its horrific destructive force. That aura left him slack-jawed in admiration. Classic Irene Prouse, casting high-level magic without even blinking. While still channeling the magic, he stared wide-eyed in shock because he sensed a massive cluster of energy right behind him. That group didn't succumb to the strong and actively fought back, their commander screaming, "There are 3 of them, Irene Prouse included. Attack and defend at the same time. Give it everything you've got." The relentless attacks turned the entire space into a blur of blue. The shockwaves radiated outward constantly, forcing those nearby to raise their arms to shield themselves. The scene before him didn't surprise him much. It didn't feel wow enough because he never underestimated his enemies. He thought to himself, "They're formidable mages too, after all, they are academy representatives." Sensing the time was right, he leaped down from the tree. With his sharp ears, a brown-haired boy felt something was wrong and immediately became alert, muttering, "There was just a sound." Staring at the bushes in front of him, he was certain the remaining person was hiding right there. Wanting to become a living legend, he immediately unleashed a move aimed directly at Lewin. Over there, the attack pierced through the foliage right next to him, yet he faced it without flinching. He quickly activated time refraction. He zipped past each person without any trouble, reaching the last guy in the blink of an eye. His speed left everyone wide-eyed in shock. He leaned forward decisively, preparing to unleash a earth-shattering kick. A direct kick landed on the boy, seemingly knocking him out of the fight instantly. The others, not expecting things to go down like that, stood there with their mouths agape in shock. To avenge his teammate, someone used the prison tree skill and countless vines sprouted from the ground, lunging toward him. Having experience with this move before, he simply jumped up to clear it. At the same time, he manifested a fireball in his hand. Realizing the danger, they scattered like a disturbed beehive. Its explosive fire energy, everyone get out of the way. But unfortunately, before they could run more than a few meters, they were cut off by Theta's ice daggers. He acted like a crazed fan in the back, cheering enthusiastically. Get 'em, Lewin wiped them out. Not disappointing his teammate, he wound up like a basketball player about to score, putting all his strength into the attack. The poor guy, despite running for his life, couldn't dodge the fireball. His face turned pale, eyes bulging as he screamed in vain. A powerful explosion occurred, expanding into a hemispherical shockwave that swept everything away, blowing trees apart as a blinding light filled the air. The result was the boy lying unconscious on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Gah! Simultaneously, his armor's durability reached its limit, disqualifying him and automatically teleporting him out of the testing grounds. He glanced at the remaining ones, who felt their hair stand on end as they shrieked. With the aura of a winner, he said calmly, "So is it 3 against 4 now?" Behind him, Irene and Theta also slowly approached. Realizing they were facing an opponent many times stronger, the leader of that gang spoke up in humiliation. "We give up." He couldn't hide his excitement. "Now we've got food." After winning and taking supplies from their opponents, they collected quite a lot of food. "There's even meat here. If this is enough, we might be able to eat for 3 days." Those guys were careful with their hoard too. Theta laughed gleefully while checking the bags. Irene and Lewin each held a black bag. "Yeah, thanks, we're going to have a feast." Suddenly, a massive explosion in the distance startled Theta. The 3 of them quickly shifted their attention toward it. "Isn't the Dan team in that direction? Not sure what's going on, but it looks like something huge. Who would take on a team of more than 10 people? This is what people call a bottleneck." Irene crossed her arms. "Very few mages ever reach this level of power." "Man, I haven't seen him in a year and his skills have improved that much. He's actually reached that level?" Theta exclaimed in shock. Lewin heard that and fell silent. "You're really strong." His face became serious and a bit intimidating. When he thought about the elite swordsman Doom Prime, the door creaked open, letting the orange light of the sunset into the dark house. Everything was going exactly as he had planned.